President Tomorito, you are streaming.
Thank you. Welcome to the Board of Education meeting. I now call this meeting to order. If you would all please rise as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Todos de la unidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América. Y a la en paz. And now we would just like to bring acknowledgement to our tribal lands. We want to gratefully acknowledge the Native peoples on whose homelands we gather, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities that surround Albuquerque who make their home here today. Thank you. And now we'll have a moment of silence for those who have given their lives in service to their country. Thank you. Dr. Albright, may we have a roll call, please?
Janelle Astorga,
Here.
Rebecca Benson,
Here.
Joshua Martinez,
Presente.
Heather Benavides,
Here.
Waikia Bowman, Courtney Jackson,
Here.
Ronaldo Tomorito.
Present. And now let's go ahead into our next item of business, and that's our agenda adoption. We'd like to consider adoption of our March 18, 2026 Board of Education meeting agenda. Do I have a motion and a second?
I move we adopt the March 18th, 2026 Board of Education meeting agenda. This is Member Jackson.
And I'll second. This is Board Member Benavides.
Board Member Jackson, a motion to adopt today's meeting agenda, and Board Member Benavides went ahead and seconded. Can I have a roll call, please?
Janelle Astorga.
Yes.
Rebecca Benson.
Yes.
Joshua Martinez.
Yes.
Benavides.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito.
Yes, the motion carried. Let's go on to item number 3, minutes approval. We're considering approval of minutes from the Board of Education meeting on March 4th, 2026, and the special Board of Education meeting board retreat on February 2026. Do I have a motion and a second?
I move that we consider approval of the minutes of the Board of Education meeting held on March 4th, 2026, and the special Board of Education meeting board retreat held on February 28th, 2026. This is Board Member Benavides.
I'll second. This is Member Jackson.
Board Member Benavides, motion to approve the March 4th Board of Education minutes and the February 28th special minutes, and Board Member Jackson, second. Can we have a vote, please?
Janelle Astorga.
Yes.
Rebecca Benson.
Yes.
Joshua Martinez.
Yes.
Benavides.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito.
Yes, the motion carried. And now let's go ahead and move along to our student outcomes recognition for interim goal 2.1 and 2.2. I will leave that to our superintendent.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Later this evening, we will be monitoring the progress of interim goals 2.1 and 2.2, which measure math proficiency in 6th and 7th grade student groups identified in the Yazzie and Martinez decision, as well as African-American students. As we did during our last meeting, before we discuss reports, I would like to take a moment to recognize schools that have shown the greatest gains from the beginning to the middle of the school year. Principals, when I call your school, please stand so we can recognize you on behalf of your staff and students. The schools that saw the largest increases in math proficiency among 6th graders in our targeted groups are Desert Willow Family School, up 55.6 percentage points. Coronado Dual Language Magnet School, up 18.3 percentage points. Janet Kahn, School of Integrated Arts, up 12.6 points. Tony Hillerman Middle School, up 12.6 points. Tres Volcanes Community Collaborative, up 10.2 points. Academy K-8, up 9.3 points. Desert Ridge Middle School, up 9.2 points. And James Monroe Middle School, up 8.8 points. So let's give these principals and their staff another round of applause. We also would like to recognize schools that saw strong gains among seventh graders in our targeted student groups. Please stand when we call your school. These schools are Desert Willow Family School, up 30.7 points. Eisenhower Middle School, up 19.1 points. George I. Sanchez Collaborative Community School, up 12.6 points. Academy K-8 School, up 10 points. Madison Middle School, up 8.9 points. And James Monroe Middle School, up 8.1 points. So if we read your school and you are affiliated with that school, can you please stand up now? We want to also make sure that we recognize the teachers, the educational assistants, the support staff, and all of the families who make this kind of progress possible every day for our students. Thank you for your continued dedication to our schools and our students. And we know how hard our students are working, and it's exciting to see all of their efforts paying off. So congratulations to everyone.
All right, thank you. Our next item up will be our public forum. And I will go ahead and turn the floor over to our secretary, Board Member Benavides.
Thank you, President Tomorito. So we welcome our guests who are joining us tonight for public forum. Thank you for taking the time to participate. When you signed up to speak, you were asked to review the rules and expectations for public forum, which our presiding officer will enforce. Under the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, our meeting agendas must clearly specify the items that will be discussed and voted on. For that reason, public forum is not a dialogue between speakers and board members, but rather an opportunity for the board to hear directly from members of our community. Speakers will be called in the order in which they signed up, whether attending in person or virtually. If you are here with us tonight, please come to the microphone at the back of the room when your name is called, and those joining us online will remain in the virtual waiting room until it is their turn to speak. We've set aside 45 minutes for public forum this evening. If there are 22 or fewer speakers, each person will have 2 minutes to speak. If there are more than 22, each person will have 1 minute. Tonight, we have 43 speakers. When your time has expired, you will be asked to conclude your remarks so we can move on to the next speaker. If you feel you were unable to fully share your message, you're welcome to email the board at boarded@aps.edu. In addition, for those of you attending in person this evening, a representative from our service center is available to assist you, and I believe that's Joanna King this evening. At this time, Mr. Gonzalez, will you please introduce the speakers, and thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Benavides. Our first speaker is in the room, Angelica Vasquez, followed by Maya Gorham, I believe. Angelica, you'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking. Do I need to lower that for you, ma'am?
Board. My name is Angelica Vasquez. I am a first grade teacher at McCollum Elementary School. I am speaking about workload on page 89 of the ATF survey. I work at a special education hub, and right now I see that educators that I work with are overwhelmed and exhausted. Each year brings new mandates, expectations, FBAs, VIPs, and unrealistic timelines to complete it all. The workload keeps growing, but the time we're given does not. As my school's union rep, I listen to my colleagues every day. I hear the stress in their voice when they ask, how am I supposed to get all of this done? We serve students experiencing trauma, homelessness, and severe behavioral challenges. We care deeply about them. We show up for them every single day, but the weight of this work combined with the demands, it's simply too much. We are passionate about what we do. In fact, I love teaching. I get to live my dream every single day, but we are also human. We have reached a breaking point. I am asking leadership and the board to recognize this reality and take action. Because when educators are supported, our students who are the top priority are truly able to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maya Gorham, followed by Angela Reynolds. And you'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Good afternoon, APS board members, board president Tom Morito, and Superintendent Blakey. My name is Maya. I'm the PE teacher at SR Marmon Elementary, and I'm here to talk about budget cuts to PE. Everyone here wants what is best for students, and what is best is more physical education. In PE, students learn physical literacy. They learn social emotional skills to navigate an increasingly chaotic world with confidence and kindness. They learn resilience. When students ride a bike for the first time, or jump a rope, or make that perfect dome with the giant rainbow parachute, they learn that with persistence, they are capable of anything. These skills and mindsets are not just about passing a test or graduating. They are about fostering happy, healthy, and fulfilled people who make good choices. Exercise increases neurotransmitters in the brain that help students learn. Countless studies show that the brain is more ready to make connections and process information after physical activity. Attendance is something APS struggles with. It impacts academics, and I regularly have students tell me that they weren't planning on going to school until they remembered it was their PE day. If you continue to cut and ignore PE, you will see academics suffer. You will see the well-being and happiness of our students decline. Please start embracing PE. We are your greatest resource. Lastly, I know the board values the opinions of students, so I encourage you to walk into any school in APS and ask the students if they want PE to be cut, and let their answers guide you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Angela Reynolds.
Good evening, Board President Tom Morito, Superintendent Blakely, and members of the board. My name is Angela Reynolds, and I'm a diagnostician in the Albuquerque Public Schools. I'm speaking about educator dissatisfaction and morale from the ATF survey. What educators are experiencing right now is not just stress, it's frustration, burnout, and a growing sense that our voices do not matter. As a diagnostician, I am responsible for helping ensure students receive the services for which they are legally entitled. But the systems we are working within are inconsistent, unclear, and constantly shifting. Expectations change, communication varies from site to site, and educators are left trying to figure things out in real time, often without the support we need to do our jobs well. The result is not just inconvenience, it's inefficiency, confusion, and a loss of trust. The survey makes it clear that educators across the district are saying that the workload is too high, expectations are unclear, and the support is not there.
Angela, you've gone over your minute. I need you to wrap up in a quick sentence, please.
People are not leading because they lack dedication. They're leading because the system is not working for the people inside of it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Loyola Cortinas, and followed by Tony Seidler. You'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Good evening, Board President Tom Morito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Loyola Cortinas. I am a third grade teacher at Tierra Antigua Elementary School. I am speaking about assessment and instruction data on page 401 of the ATF survey. My story about this is that my students are required to read 30 minutes each week using a mirror. When students read on a mirror, I often hear them repeating the same words or phrases over and over again, even though they are reading correctly. Every month we graph their scores, but I am not able to explain to my students why their score went up and down. That makes this very difficult to use this to drive my instruction. I have even heard students tell me that they feel like they are failing reading when their Amira score goes down. This does not build confidence or a love of learning, of reading. I am asking the leadership and board to follow recommendation 5 in the executive summary and establish an APS ATF committee to review instructional tools and assessments practice so that the data that teachers collected is meaningful, understandable, and actually supports instruction.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Tony, you said Seidler? Seidler, sorry. You'll have 1 minute, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening, Board President Tomorito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Tony Seidler, and I'm the head teacher at Garfield STEM Magnet. I have served as a middle school head teacher for 28 years, and until recently, I've truly loved my job. Over the past 2 years, the direction and culture of the special ed department has changed dramatically. I am no longer treated as a professional. As reflected in the ATS survey beginning on page 228 and the pie chart on page 232, policies now predetermine services and placements, often before IEP meetings occur, undermining the authority of the IEP team. This conflicts with IDEA, which requires that placement decisions be made by the IEP team based on each child's unique needs in the least restrictive environment. The workload is overwhelming, collaboration is non-existent, and communication is top-down. Educators are leaving, but more importantly, our students deserve individualized decisions, not predetermined systems. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is on Zoom, and it is Sharon Macklin. Sharon, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
You have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
My name is Sharon Macklin, and I am an elementary general music teacher at Coronado Bilingual K-8 school. On behalf of one of our first grade teachers, Jessica Diaz, I am reading a statement about Emira that she has prepared. The Emira reading program has been very difficult to implement with my bilingual students and English language learners. The program often struggles to recognize accents and dialects, which leads to frustration and low engagement from the students. The program also requires students to speak clearly and loudly into a microphone. For students who are shy, speak softly, or are still developing confidence in English, this often results in inaccurate assessments of their reading ability. Most concerning is that the results often do not reflect students' actual reading abilities. For example, I have students reading at levels 12 to 14 on the DRA2 for mid-year first grade, yet those same students score at levels 2 or 3 on Emira. Because of this, I still need to assess my students using traditional methods in addition to Emira and verify that Emira's results are not misrepresenting their reading levels.
Sharon, I have to cut you off. Oh, I'm sorry. If you're done, sorry about that. Thank you. Our next speaker is Laura Gonzalez in the room, followed by Courtney Grant. You'll have 1 minute, ma'am.
Good evening, President Tomorito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. I'm speaking on behalf of my APS physical education community, many of whom had their jobs eliminated or reduced for the 26-27 school year because of budget cuts. According to SAPR, this affected more than 40 elementary teachers alone. Members of the LESC were made aware of these cuts and have invited us to speak at their next meeting. The decisions we make to incorporate math, science, literacy, and culturally relevant subjects into our daily lessons, as well as provide opportunities for students to lead and problem solve, are focused on what is best for students. We know that we provide the foundation for every single APS goal, and we contribute to and influence 3 out of the 5 APS guardrails. PE teachers are responsible for, quote, teaching and guiding students, helping them to learn, grow, and feel safe at school. And also for, quote, engaging students as active learners and critical thinkers, end quote. This is what we do. We provide daily opportunities that support student learning, contribute to increased mental health and well-being, encourage the practice of social skills, and open avenues where students explore leadership roles they may not encounter in their home classroom. Because of APS's decision to reduce PE instruction for thousands of students, you will have changed school cultures across the city for the worse.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Courtney Grant. You'll have 1 minute.
Good evening, board members. APS has made early literacy goal 1. But as a professional in the teaching and learning department, I'm here to sound the alarm about a staggering gap between that goal and our district's current actions. APS invested millions in the high quality instructional materials, Savvis my view, then failed to provide ongoing PD for all teachers as they promised they would. The result? Hundreds of APS educators are stranded with expensive materials they don't know how to use. Nothing leads to teacher distress like a classroom of students struggling to read and write. When our union leadership fights against research-aligned literacy practices, they fuel the very burnout they claim to oppose. Literacy is the ultimate wellness strategy for students and teachers alike. I'm requesting a critical review of Goal 1. I've submitted a 10-point strategic roadmap outlining the actions a district would take if it were serious about early literacy. Let's stop the yearly initiative machine and start a decade of literacy excellence and educator well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Our next speaker is on in Zoom, and it is Michael Noker. You there?
Yes, sir, I am.
You have
Hi,
1 minute.
I'm Michael Noker. I'm a special education teacher at Hayes Middle School. I'm speaking about the graph on page 102. More than half of middle school special ed teachers feel that their expertise is not considered by admin and the district. I work with a student who has injured herself or someone else 1,253 times this year. I've taken data daily, documented every intervention, held amendments, stayed in communication with admin and parents, and brainstormed solutions while asking for support. I have not received the support the student needs due to opaque policies and unilateral decision-making. I'm asking leadership to establish a committee of admin and educators to review current policies and practices and make binding recommendations for how to ensure students receive the services they are entitled to by law in a timely manner, and educators receive the support they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is in the room. It is Gina Skoporski. Was I even close?
Gina Sapirsky.
Sapirski. Okay. You have 1 minute, ma'am.
Good evening, Board President Tom Morito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Gina Sapirsky, and I am a special ed head teacher at Taylor Middle School. I would like to reference the ATF survey, page 338, which shows that 34.6% of APS employees have experienced physical harm from a student. I am part of that 34%. Last year, I was assaulted by 2 students who had already harmed multiple staff members. They returned to school without meaningful consequences. On December 10th, 2024, they attacked me, kicking, punching, and slamming my head into a knee, leaving me with a concussion, shoulder, head, neck, and back injuries, and lasting physical and psychological pain that continues today. This situation must be addressed. The ATF survey executive summary specifically calls on APS to, oh, I'm running out of time. Our educators deserve to feel safe, and so do our students. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is on Zoom, James Macklin.
Good evening, members of the board, President Tom Morito and Superintendent Blakey. My name is James Macklin, and I am a music teacher at Kit Carson Elementary and also a Fed rep for Elementary Visual and Performing Arts. I'm here to speak in reference to the slow support, student aggression, and placement policy on pages 375 through 377 of my union survey report. This year, I have dealt with countless questions about our rights when it comes to disruptive and aggressive student behaviors from my colleagues. One of my colleagues was physically assaulted by a student this year. I keep getting asked what we can do and can only point them to the processes we have, which are minimal. 2 years ago at my school, I had a student tell me to go kill myself 3 times. He was verbally abusive to staff and assaulted other students. The district support, 3 observations. This year at my school, we had a student who was physically and verbally assaulting staff and students, and it took 5 months to get him placed in a program that could best meet his needs. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is in the room, Tim Leba, followed by Danny Carver.
Madam President, members of the board, my name is Tim Leba. I'm a 9th grade English teacher at Atrisco Heritage Academy High School. I am talking to you tonight about the pie graph on page 332, which states nearly half of APS employees, 43.5%, indicated that their school's discipline policy is unclear or inconsistently enforced. The graphs on page 338 and page 341 show respectively that over a third of APS employees reported that they have experienced physical harm from a student at school. More than 2/3 of APS employees reported that they have experienced verbal aggression from students at school. At my school, teachers have been assaulted verbally and physically. Several teachers, including my wife, have also had their lives threatened by students, the response to which was just to have the student schedules changed. This situation needs to be addressed, and as stated before in the executive summary of the survey results, we are specifically requesting APS create an APS ATF task force to develop effective systems to ensure that students who do not respond to classroom management systems, school discipline policies, and restorative practices do not chronically disrupt the learning of peers. If a student is removed from class, create consistent methods to determine when a return is warranted. The student
Sir, I'm
should-
sorry, you've gone over your 1 minute. I need you to finish up in a quick, you can have one more quick sentence, please.
Adequate protections in the classroom for the safety of the teacher and other students should be in place. Prioritize full-time nurses, counselors, and general ed social workers at each school. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Dana Carver, followed by Michael Anderson.
Good evening, Board President Tom Morito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Danny Carver. I teach at Oñate Elementary. I'm speaking about work shouldn't hurt, starting on page 331 of the ATF survey, where it states 34.6% of teachers have experienced harm from a student. This rate is much higher among elementary special education teachers, showing 58.4%. At my school, we have students that are physically violent toward other students, teachers, EAs, and support staff. It seems like there is little the school can do to keep these students from hurting people around them. My colleagues are worn out and running on fumes to show up for these students that constantly put them in danger. I understand the district has moved towards restorative justice. However, this model fails without a backbone of consistent discipline and tangible consequences. I'm asking leadership to revisit what restorative practices means for students that display consistent violent behaviors and to be clearer about what can be done when students do not seem to receive any consequences for their continual physical and violent behaviors. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Anderson is next, followed by Stephanie Garcia. Mr. Anderson, you'll have 1 minute.
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Tom Morito, board members, and Superintendent Blakey. My name is Michael Anderson. I'm the physical education teacher at Inez Elementary School. This afternoon, I'm here to bring my students' voices to you about the importance of full-time physical education. The first is a poem written by a student 15 years ago. It's one of my most prized possessions as a teacher. I live for gym, I breathe for gym, I watch a clock and race to gym. I'm free in gym to run and play, to try new games and shout hooray. It's in the gym, I feel so good, I'd live there if I only could. If only I could have gym the whole day through, why then I'd always dash to school. The second is from a current 5th grader. Like the first student and many of my students, this young man struggles with focus and attention. Movement centers him. My name is, I'm not gonna say his name. My favorite thing to do is PE at school. Same with the whole school. And did you know that PE is some of the only movement many kids get? So if you do cut PE, the other kids will most likely be unhealthy, so don't cut PE. Just real quick.
You've gone over your 1 minute. You need to wrap up in a quick sentence, please.
Last thing, kids deserve full-time physical education.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker in the room, Stephanie Garcia. You'll have 1 minute, ma'am.
Good evening, Board President Juanito Tom, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. I am Stephanie Garcia, and I work with the PAR Mentor Program to support teachers throughout APS. I'm speaking about support for students who are disruptive or in crisis on page 241 of the survey. We have a sharp increase in extreme student behavior and a lack of adequate support, leaving students and teachers in unsafe environments. We have also seen many students with intensive needs placed in settings without adequate support or services. Students respond by running away, hitting, biting, etc. The students exhibiting the behaviors and their classmates spend their days in crisis and miss opportunities to learn. I ask leadership and the board to streamline and clarify the process to identify and serve special education students to ensure they receive a free and appropriate education that includes the services they need. Also asking the district develop district-wide systems to provide teachers and students with behavioral support and resources.
Thank you. Our next speaker is on Zoom, Madeline Rowe.
Hi, good evening, Board President Tom Morito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. I'm a 7th grade science teacher at Jimmy Carter Middle School. I'm speaking about mandated assessments on page 203 of the ATF survey. Excessive testing is driving student burnout. At our school, students take iReady twice a year, IMESA twice a year, and NMESA at the end of the year. Students are experiencing back-to-back testing windows. They tell us they are anxious, overwhelmed, and burnt out. Some students have shared that they get so tired of testing, they eventually give up and just click through. Overtesting is not improving outcomes. It's exhausting students and undermining their ability to learn. Our students need more quality instruction time, not more time spent testing to meet district data collection goals. I'm asking the leadership and board to reduce redundant testing by choosing either iReady or IMESA and eliminating the other in alignment with the survey's call to streamline assessments and prioritize meaningful instructional time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is in the room, Catherine Stearns, followed by Jackson Simpkins. You'll have 1 minute. Oh.
Good evening, Board President Tomorito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Catherine Stearns, and I'm a 3rd grade teacher at Double Eagle Elementary. I'm here today to speak about the lack of time for collaboration in elementary schools. On page 408 of the ATF survey, you will see that 77% of elementary teachers report they do not have sufficient time to plan and deliver instruction effectively. Collaboration is essential, especially for planning instruction for students who work with special education or gifted teachers. Since APS switched to the bell-to-bell model at elementary schools, collaboration during the day has effectively disappeared. Teachers no longer have time to review data together, plan interventions, or even support one another. Most of our day is spent teaching, leaving grading, planning, and collaboration to happen on our own time. Teachers should not have to sacrifice their personal time to do their essential professional work. I'm asking the board to ensure protected collaboration and planning time during the duty day, even within the bell-to-bell framework. Educators deserve time to work together.
Thank you. Our next speaker is in the room, Jackson Simpkins.
Good evening, Board President Tomorito, Superintendent Blakely, and the members of the board. My name is Jackson Simpkins. I'm a youth advocate at El Dorado High School with 24/7, which helps New Mexico school districts adopt, implement, and enforce comprehensive tobacco-free policies. Under a truly comprehensive policy, nicotine use, possession, and distribution is prohibited by anyone, anywhere, at any time. We thank APS for updating their policies back in January 2025. While these new policies are definitely stronger, we recommend the following modifications to the policy AD to meet with state requirements. With the new PED rule, districts are required to highlight having signage for communicating the tobacco policy at their schools. This is detailed in the section for students, but not for staff or an AD currently. We can always provide more bilingual tobacco-free signs at the district for no cost. The policy AD must also discuss communication with the policy. We also recommend detailing what school property consists of to avoid loopholes. For example, school grounds, school buildings, school parking lots, school playing fields, school buses, and other district vehicles. Those are our main recommendations. We have a new resource, our Parent and Guardian Toolkit, and we also offer our 24/7 toolkit and faculty training resources for free. That's it. Please consider us a resource while APS considers these updates. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Our next five speakers are on Zoom. We're starting with Heather Wing.
Hi, good evening, board members. I am a national board certified teacher and union member with 24 years of experience in APS and mother of 2 APS students. I am here because Guardrail 5 that promises that no program be implemented without high quality professional development is being disregarded. The district adopted the costly SAVIS MyView to support teachers with explicit systematic reading instruction needed to achieve Goal 1. As the district has 2 seminar-style PD days with no ongoing support, most teachers have received little to no training with SAVIS, and the teaching and learning department with the expertise to provide this support is being dismantled. Because of this, our literacy instruction is a patchwork of Foundation, SAVIS, UFly, and Norton Gillingham, all with different scope and sequences. To reach Goal 1, we need instructional coherence and a common systematic scope and sequence to teach the essential early reading skills. By providing the ongoing job-embedded in-person training promised in Guardrail 5, you reduce burnout and student outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is on Zoom, Mary Catherine Brudos. And you'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Good afternoon, Board President Tom Morito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Mary Catherine Brudos, and I am the teaching and learning coach at Chamisa Elementary. Today, I'd like to discuss the question and graphs on page 241 and 242 of the survey. There is definitely an increase in highly disruptive and aggressive students at our school. Clearly, Chamisa is not alone in this condition, as the graph shows a large majority, 87.4%, of APS elementary school employees reporting that highly disruptive students are not provided the support and appropriate services they need. During the current academic year, I have been choked, which left marks on my neck, punched in the face twice, slapped across the face once, hit in the head with a thrown book, had my hair pulled, been kicked, scratched, pinched, and cursed at with every profane derogatory word there is, more times than I can count. We've had to place our school in shelter in place in order to keep the students safe from a dysregulated and violent student in the halls. Teachers, staff, and students are being physically, emotionally, and verbally abused. Please create a task force to look into the disciplinary and restorative practices so that chronic disruptive of learning is not happening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is on Zoom, Jillian Foster. Are you there?
Good
You'll have-
evening.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. Thank you. Good evening. I am in my 33rd year as a nationally board certified educator and union member with APS. I am currently an ELA teacher support specialist with the Teaching and Learning Department. My literacy instruction journey has evolved from whole language to balanced literacy, the 3 cueing system, and now to structured literacy because as research has evolved, so has my pedagogy, because I believe in one simple truth. When we know better, we do better. Right now, we are not doing better. Our district is failing students and teachers with a fragmented system. When classrooms in the same building use different programs and routines, it creates unnecessary gaps, cognitive load, and behavior issues. To improve outcomes, we need one clear message and action plan. What is needed is an appropriate district-wide rollout of evidence-based instructional materials and best practices supported by consistent, ongoing, in-person professional development. By providing a clear, systematic roadmap, we can ensure student success and restore teacher satisfaction. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is on Zoom, Tanya Hopkins.
Good evening, Board President Tom Morito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Tanya Hopkins, and I'm an elementary music teacher, also licensed in special education. I'm speaking on behalf of my elementary ATF constituents regarding school behavior management on page 331 of the ATF survey. I started APS in 2000, and I have never before seen this level of burnout and overwhelm. Until last year, my position was itinerant. So I've observed trends in many schools, and over the past few years, I've seen more educators hurt by students and colleagues who are increasingly frustrated by preventable behaviors. 58% of elementary survey respondents indicate that they have experienced physical harm from a student. When teachers tell me that they're considering leaving the profession, discipline challenges are usually the cause. Nearly half of elementary respondents indicate their school's behavior management policies are unclear or inconsistently enforced. When restorative practices guide our MTSS reporting system, but school leadership haven't been trained, it leads to a misconception that restorative practices means there aren't consequences or limits. Please provide fully trained restorative practices staff so educators have the bandwidth to spend more time innovating and differentiating than managing behaviors. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is in the room, Suzanne Scatlufi. Suzanne Scatlufi. And then followed by Raquel Leyva. You'll have 1 minute, ma'am.
Good evening, Board Member Tom Morito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Suzanne Scatliff, and I'm a PE teacher at Weary Elementary School. I grew up in Roswell, and way back then I was afforded a PE class on a daily basis. Thank goodness for that, because I was one of those quote unquote, and putting it mildly, overactive children. So for me, PE was my medication. Looking back at an old memory book I came across, apparently I knew from the age of 12 that my destiny was to become a PE teacher. Fast forward 47 years, little do I know that I'd be standing in front of you, anxious about the not so sunny future of the job that I love and the well-being of my students who depend on me for 2 days a week. I found out about my position at an IC meeting where I was told, it's the position, not the person being cut. I wish it was that simple. Around this time last year, we were being awarded, my 5 cohorts and me, APS Best in Class. Now it does feel like a demotion. So for us, it is personal, and I will leave on that note.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is in the room, Raquel Leyba.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Raquel Leyba, and I'm a law and personal finance teacher at Atrisco Heritage Academy High School. I'll be speaking on APS's lack of understanding on what is actually happening on high school campuses and the board's response to our issues. Atrisco is the largest campus in the district. Our staff and teacher numbers are cut yearly. This is based on projected data that is never accurate. We have required our admin to submit budgets and master schedules months in advance, not knowing how many students will be lined up waiting to be enrolled in August and throughout the year. Our campus feels like a mall or an airport throughout the day, with crowds of kids roaming around refusing to go to class. Students are being jumped in our hallways. Drugs are being dealt and consumed in our bathrooms. The solution? Buy gates and close them down so that students who need to go can't. We are left with 3 security guards for a population of students of 2,000 or more. We are denied to not allow enrollment of students who have been kicked out of other APS high schools.
Ms. Leyba, I'm sorry. You've gone over your minute. I need you to wrap up in a quick sentence, please.
And we deserve better. We need adequate protections.
Thank you. Our next speaker is on Zoom. I believe it's Nuria Ortiz Migrants.
Yes, thank you.
You have 1 minute, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You have 1 minute.
Thanks. Good evening. I speak tonight as both a mother and as educator with a deep sense of urgency. The lack of consistency in district initiatives and instructional routines is directly impacting a student's outcome. We know that our students and teachers, what our students and teachers need, yet year after year, we fail to provide a clear, predictable roadmap aligned with best practices. Each August brings a new initiative, often without a staying power. Meanwhile, teachers continue to ask for professional development in literacy and math, areas where we have already seen real gains in student achievement when professional development takes place. The recent decision to dissolve the Teaching and Learning Department, which supported this work, raises serious concerns. How does this decision align with current district goals, especially goal number 1 for early literacy? Our elementary students need consistent routines and access to high-quality materials, yet many classrooms lack clarity due to ongoing inconsistency.
I need to stop you there.
Students cannot afford more delays, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is in the room, Scott Schuker. You'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Good evening. My name is Scott Schuker, and I'm an art teacher at Cleveland Middle School. I am speaking on the topic of work shouldn't hurt, listed on page 331 of the ATF survey. Teachers report chronic disruptions to administrators, but often see little meaningful action or consistent consequences. Excessive time is spent on documentation and meetings, spending inordinate amount of time reporting incidents and communicating with administrators about chronically aggressive, defiant, disruptive, and or completely unmotivated students. We are pressured to build positive relationships or call the parents with such students, even when their behavior regularly disrupts instruction or threatens safety, then left to feel as if we have somehow failed when such efforts make no difference. Ongoing disruptions and weak administrative support reduce teaching time and significantly impact teacher morale, leading to rapid burnout. I am asking the leadership and board to ensure that discipline issues receive meaningful and binding follow-through and solutions, and that you work to change district policy to reduce barriers to alternative placement when a student has been given multiple opportunities to engage respectfully and safely in a classroom that repeatedly refuses or is simply incapable of doing so. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is on Zoom, Aurora Silva. Aurora, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, you'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me speak. My name is Aurora Silva. I'm a special education CES1 teacher at Sandia High School. I'm speaking on behalf of my peers to emphasize the importance of ensuring our district special ed programs are properly funded, staffed, and supported. All of our students, including our SPED students, deserve the necessary support to grow and thrive, and their parents and guardians deserve to have their concerns about their students' needs acknowledged. Recently, district personnel have been pushing for moving many students into inclusion, sometimes without respect to the needs of students which are documented in their IEPs, and sometimes without checking in with the IEP teams. This is a serious concern that has been voiced by nearly 40% of educators within APS, as shown by the survey released by ATF earlier this year. And about a third of educators who responded to the survey experienced personnel attempting to override the committee's decisions. This is shown on pages 232 to 235. So I believe that district personnel at all levels need to be more patient and understanding of the need and importance of having well-trained, qualified SPED staff across the district. There should be less focus on the raw numbers of students of IEPs and more focus on making sure all these students have exactly what they need to be successful, both in campus and after graduation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is on Zoom, Elsie Stott.
Good evening, Superintendent, Board President, and members of the board. My name is Elsie Stott, and I'm a band director here in APS. I'm here tonight because the ATF survey reflects what many of us are living every single day. The workload is unsustainable, and constantly changing policies and unclear expectations are making it harder for us to do our jobs well. According to the survey, 48.5% of APS employees said their workload is unmanageable. 77.6% said frequent changes in policies and procedures affect their ability to do their jobs effectively. I'm one of those. And 71.9% said new district policies and procedures are not clearly documented or easy to understand. Agreed. That's why we're here. As a band director, that matters because a strong music program depends on consistency, structure, and trust. Students cannot make music well together when expectations keep shifting and accountability feels inconsistent. We need fewer unattainable mandates, less burdensome documentation, and real consistency. What you can do, please prioritize full-time nurses, counselors, general social ed workers, and create an APS ATF task force to develop effective systems to ensure that students who do not respond to classroom management systems, school discipline policies, and restorative practices do not chronically disrupt the learning of their peers. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is on Zoom. It is Caitlin Badeau, I believe.
Baudet.
Baudet.
Close, very close.
You'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Tom Warito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Caitlin, and I'm a special education teacher at Volcano Vista High School. I'm speaking about academy schedules, educator input, aligned with HB 171. I want to be part of this work. I want to collaborate with my colleagues, help design meaningful academic experiences, and contribute to decisions that impact my students. However, the current structure makes that difficult. According to the survey, 53.9% of high school teachers and 51.7% of special education teachers report that academy schedules do not allow sufficient time for both preparation and collaboration. In addition to these concerns, educators are also experiencing confusion about how the academy's model aligns with HB 171 or whether it aligns at all. We are ready to do this work, but we need the time, clarity, and trust to do it well. I am asking the leadership and board to align the academies of Albuquerque with the intent of HB 171 by prioritizing student choice and flexibility, and to provide protected time for meaningful collaboration so educators can help design that work. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is in the room, Miss Janet Sayers. You got the microphone? Okay.
Good evening, President Tom Morito, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. Well, I'm at a loss for words. This is quite a bit of information to process tonight, this testimony. I know next week you have 2 sessions that will help answer the question, who runs APS? Does the superintendent and her staff run it? Or does the board run APS by setting policy, et cetera? So perhaps some of these eloquent speakers might participate in that next week. I did want to say that there's 7 of you. You represent $1 billion budget, or almost $1 billion, 6,000 some employees, maybe not 1 billion, 65,000 students. You have no staff, essentially. You've got a small staff that does administrative tasks. The legislature, 110 people, they each have a full-time person. The city council, there's only 9 of them. They have a full-time person. The county commission, there's 5 of them. They have a full-time person. I urge, as you listen to the whole community engagement thing this next year, how can you all, as people that have jobs and families, how can you be the best board member possible without some extra support? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is on Zoom, James Billingham. Are you there?
Yes.
You'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Board President Morito Tome, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is James Billingham, and I'm a special education English language arts and ELD teacher at Tony Hillerman Middle School. I am speaking about special education workloads on page 45 of the ATF survey. And my story is that I need to wake up around 3 a.m. each morning just to work on the assigned paperwork of my caseload of 24 students throughout the weekend as well. I'm in charge of 3 behavior intervention plans currently, and that I have updated this year, collect data on, buy talkies for, and must answer for when teachers are frustrated with the plan and discipline procedures that are not followed, as well as interventions that are failing because our school is already overwhelmed by student behaviors. Meanwhile, my colleagues and I are also frustrated and overwhelmed and are very tired of being disrespected in our classrooms and getting offensive posts in our Google classrooms.
Mr. Billingham, I have to stop you there. You've gone over your minute, so please wrap up in a quick sentence.
I'm asking for leadership to consider ways to reduce caseload paperwork and better discipline procedures. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is actually in the room, Renee Pacheco, and followed by Zoom, Jason Krasinski, it looks like. You'll have 1 minute, Renee.
All right. Would you be okay with a teacher, a counselor, or somebody at your child's school talking to your child about abortion or gender transition without your consent? Would you want to know the decision, the plans, the conversation? Did you know there are approximately 78 school-based clinics located in or near public schools statewide? Do you know that the state currently has no parental notification law for minors and no parental consent requirements for minors seeking abortions and gender-affirming care? This is from Pinon Post, Life News, and Town Hall reports. Did you also know on March 2nd, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a 63 ruling in Marabelli versus Bonta, blocking a California policy that allowed schools to conceal students' gender transitions from parents? These secrets policies violate constitutional rights, including parental rights to direct their children's upbringing and freedom of religion.
Thank you. Our next speaker is on Zoom, and I'm going to say Jason Krasinski.
Yes, you got it right this time, Jason Krasinski.
All right. You have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
All right, thank you. Thank you, President Tom Morito and board members and Superintendent Blakey. My name is Jason Krasinski. I am currently the head special ed teacher half-time at Bel Air Elementary. I am speaking on concerning my largest part of my career, where I've worked in middle school and high school, spent 32 years between both. And I'd like to draw your attention to page 449, where we talk about collaboration between general and special education staff is effective. I am surprised that only 43% of the respondents said that it is not effective, because I found for the second half of my career, it was completely ineffective. All I did was email teachers whenever I needed data from them, and they would email me, because my students on my caseload would see anywhere from 10 to 20 different teachers. So the only way I can collaborate was by email. If email is collaboration, it didn't feel like that to me. The first half of my career, I had great collaboration because we had families, but now I don't feel like we collaborate at all. We just email each other. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is in the room, Stephanie Blythe. Will be followed by Brian Laurent.
Good afternoon, President Tomei Warito and Superintendent Blanky and members of the board. My name is Stephanie Blythe, the head teacher at Comanche Elementary. At the beginning of August, 3 new students transferred into our school with individualized education plans. After reviewing these plans, we notified the district that we did not have the least restrictive environment for some of the students. I provided 30 pages of documentation, reviewed an outside IEP that was over 50 pages long. This takes hours, not to mention pictures and video footage I submitted to support a more restrictive learning environment. Parents of these students were in favor of a more restrictive environment. It took over 1 month to move the students to their already established least restrictive environment. During that month, I was assaulted with such severity that required surgery to repair 7 different hand orthotics and ongoing physical therapy, which has resulted in months of recovery that I am still unable to work or fully function. I encourage you to implement the ATF union recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Brian Laurent. You'll have 1 minute.
Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. Thank you for your service to our community. My name is Brian Laurent, and I'm speaking this evening as a former 7th grade special education math teacher who taught here at APS. Tonight, the administration will share why the district remains off track with math outcomes for its most at-risk students. The root cause is actually deeper than what the administration has published in its monitoring reports. The district continues to perpetuate the narrative that Goal 2 is simply a middle school goal. But we obviously don't start teaching math in 6th grade, and far too many students are multiple years below grade level by the time they enroll in middle school. Board members, I ask 2 things tonight. 1, decline acceptance of both progress monitoring reports due to the incomplete root cause analyses. And 2, push the administration to explain how they are supporting improved math outcomes at the elementary level. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is on Zoom, Todd Reed. Mr. Reed, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Good afternoon. I've already addressed the proper legal and policy protocols regarding student involvement in protest. My concern today is ensuring that taxpayer-funded education remains focused on education, not political influence. We must also be honest about why the federal government is involved in removing individuals who have violated federal law. This is not an abstract issue. It directly affects the safety and stability of our communities. There are serious concerns about the scale and unlawful entry into this country and the risks it presents, including criminal activity and national security threats. These are not issues schools should be encouraging students to take political positions on without balanced factual education. I recognize that some argue these actions are unconstitutional. However, if we are going to invoke constitutional principles, we must also consider the founders' concerns about standing armies and their emphasis on a well-armored citizenry as a safeguard of liberty. We cannot selectively apply constitutional principles if we are serious about them. We must be consistent. Our schools should educate, not advocate, and certainly not direct students into politically charged movements. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is in the room, Dr. Sinello, followed by Eileen O'Shaughnessy. And you'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the board, and I'm an alternative health doctor and minister. New Mexico is the abortion capital of the world and dead last in education. This is an alert. There's a comprehensive analysis detailing how the same water that we families and students use to drink, cook, and bathe in may contain residuals from abortion drugs. An estimated 30 to 40 tons of hazardous medical waste of human remains and chemical byproducts of the abortion pill, mifepristone, are being flushed into the water system annually. A research paper titled Abortion in Our Water estimates around 700,000 chemical abortions annually. The wastewater treatment plants are not designed to filter out these metabolites or fetal tissues, which is a national public health and environmental crisis. These harmful drugs are the endocrine disruptors, potentially contribute to infertility, liver injury, heavy vaginal bleeding, uterine cramping, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headache, and dizziness, and call for strict regulations and ban on flushing fetal remains. Okay, thank you. Do you have a plan of action for the sake of APS employees and students' health and well-being? May God have mercy on APS.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Eileen O'Shaughnessy.
Good evening, board. My name is Eileen O'Shaughnessy, and I am an ELA teacher at Rio Grande High School. My topic is poor working conditions on page 296 of the ATF survey. First, I want to say that I deeply love teaching. I love my school community, and I absolutely adore my students. There are aspects to my job that make loving it difficult, however, specifically large class sizes and overheated classrooms. Across APS, educators are concerned about large class sizes, and this is true at Rio, where we are facing larger class sizes next year due to drastic staff cuts. The majority of my classes are maxed out at 30 students per class. As many teachers discussed in the ATF survey, it becomes nearly impossible to keep up with the thousands of daily tasks we are responsible for with 120 to 150 students under my care. I want to provide each student the individual attention they deserve, and even a class of 20 versus 30 is more manageable. Overcrowded classrooms are also overheated. At the beginning of this year, my classroom had a broken AC for months, which resulted in 90-degree temperatures and students who felt faint. In conclusion, I'm asking the board to add employee wellness components to your goals and guardrails. As teachers, our working conditions are students' learning conditions, and hot, overcrowded classrooms are dangerous and not conducive to learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is in the room, Benjamin Imbus, followed by Isabel Sotos. Benjamin, you'll have 1 minute once you begin speaking.
I want to thank our district for looking towards restorative practices, which I genuinely believe are the future. However, I want to critique us for not actually developing any guidelines or infrastructure for what restorative looks like in schools. My school has been touted as a restorative success story for the past few years, and yet I've never sat in on a restorative meeting. I've never even heard of a restorative meeting at my school. And yet challenging behaviors increase. We cannot be restorative in name and no consequences in practice. Then if our students have IEPs, we suspend, and then at 10 days of suspension, our admin says, there's nothing we can do. And so I have coworkers who are being stabbed, who are being choked, who are having furniture thrown at them, and ignoring dangerous behavior is not gonna help children develop safe social skills. So because of these issues, and it prevents others learning. Because of these issues, we've had teachers quit. We've had parents pull their children from the district. We have other students who are afraid to come to school. Please make schools safe for your students and for your workers. Work shouldn't hurt.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Isabel Soros, I believe. Am I saying that right? Okay, go ahead.
I'm speaking instead of her. My name is Mehma Gaur, and I am representing the students of Albuquerque High. And I'm speaking for them because they want to exercise their freedom of speech. This is our own choice to come up here as students to exercise our First Amendment right to express our discontent with how our government is functioning. One of the values of the United States is that people have the right to speak out even against their own government. In fact, it's so important that we protect it in the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. That means Americans have the right to share their opinions about the government policies and to gather peacefully and share those views. As students, we are still part of this democracy. The decisions that are made about our country and the world today will affect us when we inherit it tomorrow. At school, we are taught to hone our abilities, use them to our fullest potential, and to speak out for ourselves. And to express our views and opinions on current events without fear of punishment. This includes peaceful forms of discussion in organizations and student-led walkouts. So we are not asking for chaos or disrespect. We are asking for the opportunity to use our voices peacefully and responsibly to engage with the issues that matter to us. If schools are meant to prepare students for citizenship, then part of that preparation must include the ability to speak, question, and participate. So thank you for your time and for listening to the voices of your students as well.
Thank you. President Tom Morito, that completes public forum.
Please stay, please stay.
All right, I'll let people clear out for a moment. Thank you.
Just
Up to our more interesting piece, we get to hear their representation. Did we fit everybody? Fit everybody in this room? We did. I don't know. Oh, okay, we're working. We'll wait for everyone to be seated and we'll resume. There's seats on this side.
Madam
Yes.
President, if I could.
Yes.
I would just, as part of the record, would like to encourage people to stay for the entirety of the school board meeting as business is being addressed and where the bulk of the meeting continues after public comment. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Okay. We are ready to move forward with our agenda. And so we'll begin on item 6.1. Consider acceptance of progress monitoring reports for interim goal 2.1 and 2.2 math proficiency. First, we'd like to take a motion and a second, and then I will introduce the floor.
I move we accept the progress monitoring reports for interim goals 2.1 and 2.2 math proficiency. This is Member Jackson.
I will second Member Astorga.
Okay, we have Board Member Jackson, motion to accept the progress monitoring reports, and Board Member Astorga second. We will go ahead and proceed. Our presenters for tonight's presentation are Dr. Gabriella Blakey, Superintendent, Dr. Randy Malweiner, Deputy Superintendent, Leadership and Learning, Sherry Jett, Chief Academic Officer, Chris Sanchez, Assistant Superintendent for Middle Schools, and Thomas C. West, Executive Director, Office of Accountability and Reporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. I do want to just take a minute to recognize the principals that just came in. I see several of them who we mentioned earlier, but they weren't able to make it in the room because it was full. So if those principals that just walked in, if you could, I see Madison, Academy, Coronado, if you guys could stand up to be recognized. Thank you. Earlier this evening, as I just mentioned, we were able to recognize these principals and their schools for making strong progress on Goal 2, which focuses on middle school math proficiency. These schools have demonstrated the kind of progress that we are working to build across all of our middle schools. At the same time, when we look at the system as a whole, math in middle school remains challenging for many of our students. The data in the monitoring reports for interim goals 2.1 and 2.2 show slight improvement compared with this time last year, but the pace of growth is not anywhere near where we would like it to be. So the reports in your packet provide more detail on our data and our strategies, and the team is available this evening to answer any questions that the board may have regarding this progress monitoring report. So I turn it over to you for questions.
Okay, who wants to begin?
Board President,
Yes.
can we decide whether the report has met the 4 critical elements before moving forward, please? Step 2.
Thank you. Okay, so we need to confirm that our monitoring report is complete. And in asserting whether it is complete, we review 4 elements: the goal, the data, the interpretation, and the evidence and the plan. That review includes asking questions such as, does the report show the specific goal being monitored? Does it clearly show data for the previous 3 reporting periods? Does it clearly show the superintendent's understanding of systems performance relative to the goals? Does it clearly show supporting documentation that shows evidence of a strategic response if the goal is on track, or root cause analysis if it is not on track? And I believe that all of the criteria for an effective report have been met. That is one of our clarifications, but I will open the floor for anyone else who thinks we may be missing one of the elements. Does anyone have evidence that suggests an element is missing? Now we go back to those questions. Nope, nothing? Nope. Okay.
I mean, I think that the report says that the goal is not on track, right? And that I'm not really sure if it gives a good analysis of how you're going to get it on track. By looking at the report, and just, of course, I'm always coming from this as a teacher because that's my background. I know that students grow more at the beginning of the year than they do the last part of the year. And from the information we have, it doesn't look like we're going to meet the goal. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
We do feel like the strategies that are listed in here will help us to meet the goal. It is a very big jump, as you're pointing out, to get to the end of the year at the goal that we're reaching for, but we do feel like the strategies are implemented in a way throughout the year that we will be able to make it.
Won't we have to we'll have to do more growth the second semester than we did the first semester? And I don't know about you, but I'm just listening to teachers talk about how stressed they are. How are we going to do that? That's what I would want to ask. I don't know that we can ask teachers to do any more than we're already asking them. I mean, it makes me a little emotional just to hear those teachers and then sit here and act like we can ask them to do more.
Madam President, Mayor. So I think that's actually the point of the discussion that we're about to have is, so maybe at this point right now, you don't feel as though that there is enough evidence, but I think that's why we moved to the discussion, because we have the report, but maybe we need to do a little bit more analysis or discussion with the administration that's in front of us, and then to decide if the strategies are on track or not. I know that I have 4 questions that are going to try to get to those strategies, but I don't think that it's quite fair just yet for us to say it's just not going to happen if we haven't had the chance to interrogate the administration.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Interrogate in a nice way.
All right, who wants to go first? All right, go ahead.
Courtney always has great questions. Go for it, Courtney.
So first, like I said, I have 4 questions, but I won't ask all of them right now. So I'm going to start with The first one was derived from the sentence that is found on page 6 of both of the reports. And what it says, I'll just read it so that if you don't have the document in front of you, you know where I'm referencing. And it is that district strategies appropriately emphasize grade level access, conceptual coherence, just-in-time scaffolding, and embedded discourse. However, the consistency with which these elements are experienced across classrooms varies. Where representation rich tasks, structured reasoning routines, and embedded scaffolds are reliably present, student growth is stronger. Where those elements are less consistently integrated, acceleration slows. Okay, so that's where I'm starting from. So my question is, how can the board best support the system in ensuring that the instructional practices we know drive strong student growth, which are high quality instructional materials, aligned coaching, clear expectations, grade level tasks, structured discourse, and embedded scaffolds are consistently and effectively implemented across all classrooms, particularly when it appears that the difference is not your strategy, but it is the fidelity and urgency with which existing materials, coaching, and supports are being used. And if I may use a direct term that I learned today in public forum, it is instructional coherence and a lack of consistency.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, before I answer the question, I'd just like to thank the middle school principals that are here, not only the ones that got recognized for growth, but our other middle school principals are here. And I'd like to thank our executive directors team that supports all our departments. They're here. I think we've taken a real team approach to looking at all of our goals. And I think it's a representation of the team that is building an APS. So I just would like to thank them as I'm getting ready to answer your question. It was a long question. So if I don't hit it all, I'll jump back in and answer it again or add to it. One thing that we're very confident about, as Dr. Blakey mentioned, is that we have the right strategies in place. As you're building instructional coherence, it takes time. And I think the one thing that we are implementing is we're implementing a more strategic approach to writing 90-day plans. Our assistant superintendents actually got together and we wrote a more rigorous, tighter rubric for our principals to be able to plan how to implement not only goal 2, but goal 1 and 3, as well as 4. And we're looking at making sure that those 90-day plans are very intentional and very site-based aligned. Different sites have different needs. Different sites have different levels of seniority in teachers. And we know veteran teachers have a little better grasp on things than our new teachers. And that's why we put different professional development plans in place to support each of those teachers. I think the word that you touched on that stood out to me was coherence and consistency. Creating a framework, a very intentional framework, which is our 90-day plans in which our principals are working at, and we're building coherence for our leadership. That in turn, if we stay the course with the strategies we know are effective and research-based, we'll be able to create consistency and coherence over time. I think that the other piece that we're looking at is as a team at the district level, we've looked at the 90-day plans, we've parsed them apart, and we are kind of identifying very key areas as different plans align to different strategies or need for different strategies. And we're looking at very intentional professional development directed at the need in the school. Not all schools need the same professional development. And since we've increased the intentionality and the rigor on our 90-day plans, now we're looking at what those 90-day plans saying, and we're building coherence at Chief Jett's area of expertise, and we're going to be deploying more intentional resources directed at needs in the schools to help implement those 90-day plans so we can see those taking shape in the classrooms on a more consistent basis. I can, anything I didn't answer completely, I'll be happy to, if you could remind me.
Oh, yeah, okay, so I think, well, hold this one. This is actually where I started, but I think you can wrap the bow up. What my question was how can the board best support you? But hold that because I need to ask a couple follow-up questions if that's okay. Okay. So I think one thing I did notice from the previous report and this report is that there was an introduction of new strategies. Okay. And so just a quick technical question is, you mentioned that the 90-day plans, how you have developed a tighter rubric and they are more site-based aligned. Is that one of the new strategies that you have adopted in order to acknowledge the trajectory that we're on?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. Thank you for that question. So to go back to your original question, how can the board support? I believe it's continuing to progress monitor and continuing to hold us true to the strategies that we do have in place. Going back to the question in regards to the 90-day plan, one of the things that we noticed is our strategies are in place. We need to tighten up our execution of the strategies. So earlier in the year, I reported out that we were looking at critical actions of the school's 90-day plans. Through the analysis of looking at the 90-day plans throughout the year, we started to notice that there were things that needed to be tightened up within 90-day plans. And it kept falling back to the root cause analysis as part, there's 6 components of a 90-day plan. It kept falling back to the root cause analysis. So what we've done, just like schools are doing and teachers do on every single day, they make these real-time instructional pivots. We started to really look at what can we do with 90-day plans differently. We initially started with that critical action. Then we created, I call it an implementation tool, not a rubric, but it's something in addition to what the state already requires all the 90-day plans to meet. So all of the schools' 90-day plans have been approved by the state. We are now looking at pushing the schools to improve on their practices, tighten up those systems, so to speak. So through that root cause analysis, we're finding that the desired outcomes and the critical actions, we need some more alignment on that. So our team is actually going out into the schools right now and working with the desired outcomes that the schools have, observing classrooms and deploying those resources in real time to support them with their 90-day plans.
So, sorry, one more follow-up. Okay, thank you. So just easy question. Do you feel as though the tightening up of the 90-day plan, the rubric, the additional support that you are giving to the schools, do you feel confident that those strategies will help to get us back on track?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, yes, I feel confident that the strategies are research-based, they are key, they are sound. What we have is we have to tighten up our execution of our 90-day plans to make sure that those strategies are showing results.
Okay. I will pause.
Okay. Pause. Who's next? Okay, Board Member Benavides.
Thank you, President Tomarito, and thank you all for being here this evening and for your patience. I know it's been a long meeting so far and you guys always stick with us, so we're very grateful for that. Thank you. So my question is related to family engagement and communication, which can be found on Interim Goal Report 2.2, page 9 specifically. And Under planned actions, it says schools communicate during parent-teacher conferences and curriculum night showcases how proportional reasoning and rational numbers show up in everyday contexts and how teachers are supporting students to learn them. Why does this matter? When families understand instructional expectations and supports, they are better positioned to reinforce persistence and confidence in math learning. And so I know there's a lot of focus tonight on administration and on teachers, and you all are so important, but we need to support families because that's where learning is really solidified and starts, honestly. And I know it's hard. Math is difficult for parents to help their students with. And so how is APS ensuring that this information is accessible to all families, including English learners and families with limited access to in-person events, which many of us are? And what measures will be used to evaluate the effectiveness of those efforts or what has already been done? Thanks.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, thank you for that question. We actually had this conversation today about family engagement and, definitely acknowledge the existing structures that we have in place, including the parent-teacher conference, our newsletters, et cetera, as well as our instructional council, which is designed to include family involvement and community school councils as well, which are another way that we can bring our families into the work and have our community connected to the rigorous instruction that we are providing in the classroom. That being said, I acknowledge that, there are also barriers in our community in terms of communication. And so part of our equity work is always ensuring that our materials are available in multiple languages. So I know Chief Campos has been really pivotal in teaching me. You always have to communicate in multiple languages. Similarly, I know that our teachers do take on the responsibility of communicating with families about student progress as part of their workload. And I acknowledge that, but that is a key part of how we reach our homes. I think there are also other aspects of that we can continue to grow, including how we use our out of school time, for example, and we partner with our community organizations that may have more access to our families in order to help support this engagement.
If you don't mind. Thank you so much. Okay, so I have a quick follow-up then. What percentage of families are currently participating in parent-teacher conferences and curriculum nights where this information is shared? Do you have that information readily available? And that's actually a clarifying or technical clarifying question, but I think it's really important to have that information.
Board Member Benavides, I don't believe we have that information right off the top, but we have parent conferences coming up.
Okay.
So for all the parents watching this meeting, we really want them to participate. It's good timing that we do have parent conferences next week and we'll be able to get that information.
Okay, thank you all. Sorry to put you on the spot like that. Thank you.
Who's next? Okay, Board Member Benson.
Okay, I'm gonna follow up on is it Dr. Mallerwine? Doctor or Mr.?
Dr. Mallerwine.
Dr. Mallerwine. So you said that the assistant superintendents got together and wrote a rigorous and tightened plan that going to go forward, right? Were teachers involved in this plan? Did you have them be part of this plan? Because you can make whatever plan you want, but if teachers are not involved in it, the idea that there's a disconnect, I feel. And I feel like we need to be including teachers in these conversations if we're going to have success. So were there any teachers involved, or is it just the assistant superintendents that got together and created a plan?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. So the 90-day plan process in New Mexico is a bit new to me, and I'll refer to Mr. Sanchez in a minute. But PED requires schools to have 90-day plans, and they have a rubric that we've been going by as we work with their schools to write the plans. What we looked at was we didn't feel like the PED rubric was at the standard that APS sets for our expectations in the future. So what our team did was look at the rubric that the PED had given us and then tightened it up and made it what we felt to the APS standard. One of the things we've been talking about since the first of the year around the first of the year when we put the new rubric in place was how are we communicating the 90-day plans with the instructional councils at the school, because we have to get the teachers involved to understand what the 90-day plans are saying at their schools and what it looks like in regards to shifts in the classroom. So to answer your question, in this phase, we did not get teachers involved, as it hadn't been something that it was done in the past. But as we are providing more training for our principals, the vision is that our instructional councils have a lot more input and become a lot more included in these 90-day plans. And again, that was part of the iterative process of in real-time pivot that Mr. Sanchez spoke of, and I'll defer to him if he has anything else to add to that.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. Like Dr. Mellerwine was talking about, the PED has their own rubric that they use to approve all the 90-day plans within the state. Earlier, I mentioned, I don't like calling it a rubric. I like calling it an implementation tool. And this implementation, I'm going to use the words implementation tool because then I'll start calling it a rubric the rest of the week. This implementation tool is actually part of our coaching process as all of us assistant superintendents are going out and working with principals. Earlier, I mentioned that one of the first challenges we put towards principals was to align critical actions to the goal of their level. And principals started to do that work. But as they started to do that work, we didn't have really anything to measure it off of. So, and as we started to review 90-day plans, we saw that if the strategies within the progress monitoring report are sound, we need to clean up the execution piece. And in some instances, we're seeing critical actions, and that's what the teachers are to do. The critical actions there were multiple different critical actions. The critical actions, there was no rhythm to them. They weren't all focusing on the same instructional shift. They were all different. So with this tool, we're using it to tighten up the system so that we can execute these strategies clearer.
And quoted by Dr. Mellerwine, it says rigorous and tighter plan. So to me, as a teacher, that sounds like more work to me. So would you say that making this rigorous and tighter plan is going to put more work on our teachers that are already stressed?
Yeah, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, no, that's not the intent. The intent is for us to be more intentional and streamlined. It would be more intentional and streamlined into what are we communicating to our teachers in regards to their instruction. It's not to add, it's for us to provide supports for them to improve. It's to provide supports to provide supports to support. I know it's redundant, but it's not to add more work. It's really to, it's almost like working smarter, not harder. How can we support our teachers to tweak their instruction to improve slightly to get better outcomes? And that plan is, the stage that we're in now is teams walking classrooms, looking, and then coming back and saying, okay, we can help a teacher improve here better. We can help a teacher improve better. It's not to add more work. It's to be more specific, provide more feedback, and support the teachers to improve daily.
I'll let that go. One more question I have.
Or you want to?
Can I have one more question?
Yeah, or we can go around too and you.
Okay, all right, let's do that. We'll go around.
Who's next? Okay, board member. Okay.
Thank you, President Tomorito. I have a few questions as well. Board member Benavides took one of mine, so I'm just gonna kind of reiterate what she said because I think it's really important. The engagement with families, especially with math. I know just in my family too, I have my siblings who are all over elementary, middle, and high school that still come and ask if I can help them with their homework because they don't understand. So I think it's important to engage families, especially during parent-teacher conferences. How are we being intentional when we're talking about math scores and math grades with our children? So thank you for asking that question. I think it's important. I will kind of take us back to a district level question. I know we've talked a lot about teachers and their work, and I know that your report shares some of those strategies around professional development and what you're doing there. But my question is around the current English language learners and how they show only a 3.5% proficiency. So due to this information, are we shifting strategies to include more bilingual math courses? And how are we ensuring that assessments are accommodating language barriers?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, thank you for that question. One of the strategies that we're working on is specifically with math. Our Language and Cultural Equity Department is currently training teachers on a set of strategies called AIM 4S cubed. It's achievement-inspired math for scaffolding student success. Basically, it's a bunch of best teaching practices that build off one another. One of the great things about it is this tool called a compendium. So when we're looking at our English language learners, we really want to focus on the idea of that building into their concrete, representational, and abstract ideas, because they're acquiring a new language. By utilizing these type of strategies, the AIM 4S cubed, they're specifically for math. GLAD, guided language acquisition design, is more, I call it for more on the ELA, social studies, science side. So these strategies are specifically for math. So LCE is doing a great job with supporting math teachers in getting them trained. They're also bringing in not only math teachers or ELD teachers, they're opening it up to any secondary teachers to work on unit-long lesson plans to support our EL students.
Great, and just a follow-up, just to the first part of my question, this might be a superintendent question actually, but are we seeing an increase of bilingual mathematics to help support these English language learners?
I'm looking at Ms. Kano to see if she gives me the answer, but she's coming up.
Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, thank you for the question, Ms. Astorga. We have employed all of the available bilingual teachers. My department has reached out to our local university, and I've offered to go in and talk to, but there is a need for bilingually endorsed and bilingual math teachers. So if there's any, our district, unique to other districts, does actually offer tuition reimbursement for current employees who are seeking bilingual and or TESOL endorsements. So we are really working hard with those initiatives to get as many highly qualified math teachers with that bilingual endorsement. But we are currently utilizing all the staff that we have that currently hold those endorsements.
Thank you. Just another quick follow-up since I have you at the table. A second part of my question was, how are we tailoring assessments for English language learners? I know that we use, I think it's iReady or iStation. I don't remember the exact one, but is there a Spanish assessment that they're using or whatever language is that they need, or are the assessments all in English, which is why we have a 3.5% math proficiency?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, the assessments that are state mandated are in English. Our newcomer students within 30 years do have access. We, as a district, we really use those in the language if students are receiving instruction in that language, because there's a disconnect. The students aren't learning in that way and we're assessing that way. There's a disconnect as to what's happening. Through the professional development that Mr. Sanchez described, we're really working with teachers. Our teachers can discern when there is some proficiency in math or there's a language barrier. So through formative assessments, through the tools that Mr. Sanchez discussed, we can see that. So even though you may not see it in the progress monitoring, our teachers are highly capable of making those discernments and are making adjustments. So the professional development that Mr. Sanchez referred to, I employ a local professional development, and I'm meeting with them quarterly, giving them feedback on what I hear from the podium, from the teachers in our discussion to make sure that the professional development aligns to iReady, to illustrative math, so that teachers are getting tools to align that work and facilitate that work and not in addition to. So those professional development providers do know what APS in particular is doing, and we are getting tailored professional development to meet the needs. I share with them the data of how many students we have, the levels, the spectrum, so that they're making adjustments when they work with our teachers for the expectations that those teachers have day to day.
Thank you so much. I feel like I have a lot of follow-ups and questions just about how it works specifically to bilingual students when it pertains to assessments, and if they're learning in English, they take the test in English, but if they're learning in Spanish, they have the option to take the test in Spanish. Can you just clarify that's what you said?
So by law, if students are newly arrived, we can provide assessments in the language. In New Mexico, it's really only available in Spanish. But if the students are newly arrived and the instruction isn't in Spanish, the students may not have the academic language that assessment is being asked. So we're really working with teachers to teach math and eliminate as many language barriers to make sure that students are prepared for the assessment as the assessment is asking. So really asking them to align their instruction to that vocabulary. But we really, at the secondary level, it's very minimal when we actually see students being assessed for the standardized assessments in Spanish or another language.
Thank you so much for all that information, and I might send some follow-ups. But I just want to really get some, just like a head nod or thumbs up from the team if you feel that this 3.5% proficiency for English language learners was really decided based on these students being able to understand the assessment and still have this score. I know that's a hard question, but I just want to make sure that we're assessing the students and they're understanding why or what they're being assessed in.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. So I think an important thing to point out, these are sixth grade English learners. So many of these students have been with us. They've been English learners since they were in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. So when we talk about English learners, we talk to you guys about goal 1. We're talking about students that are newer to education. But these are students that they've been English learners with us for a long time. So we are required to give them the mandated state test, which is actually mandated by the federal government to receive funds for these students. So I think I would just caution a little bit when talking about bilingual, because in the state, the funds that we're using to identify these students as English learners is actually saying they're not bilingual yet. And that's why they're English learners, because we're trying to raise their English proficiency. So yes, it's an accurate measurement of how they're doing in a setting that is made in terms of the funds we get to see how they're doing in English. But like Ms. Cano said, though, the idea here, so these tests are meant to be predictive of the summative assessment. So why do we use them for interim goal monitoring? It's because our way of saying, yes, we think that if we were to give them the NMSSA, New Mexico Measures of Student Success and Achievement, at the end of the year, this is how we think they'll perform right now. But that doesn't mean that has anything to do with the instruction they're receiving, right? So we're using it as a way to progress monitor to tell you right now, that group by the measure we're defined on, which is used, to tell whether our schools are MRI, CSI, distinguished, all the different designations that we get, we're giving you as accurate as possible prediction of how those students will perform on the English test. And remember that test is English only if they've been in the United States for, I think it's more than 3 years or 2 years. 2 years. So like I said, the students that are new to the United States and who don't speak English at the level that gets them out of being an English learner, when we do the assessment screening of them, they're taking it and they're taking it in Spanish,
Okay.
right? So it's people who are in the United States, they take it in Spanish. People who have been here for a long time, when they get sixth grade, they're taking it in English.
I appreciate that
Yeah.
connection. I think that helped me process everything as well. And I just want to also clarify is that I just want to make sure that the students that are taking the assessment, it's not that they're not proficient because they don't understand the language, but they're not proficient because they're not understanding the curriculum or math in general. So thank you for that.
I could, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, remember, this is just one data point that the teacher uses. Right, so we're not using this data point to say what the student knows and can do overall. It's to say is an indication of where they'll be when they take the test at the end of the year. So it's one data point, right? And a lot of times, actually, in our bilingual programs, if I may, in kindergarten through fifth grade, they're actually assessed in both languages, and it's really helpful because then they can see, is it a language barrier or not? So it's just one tool. It's not the full picture in terms of the formative assessments that go on in the classroom.
Right. No, thank you so much. I feel like all of those answers were super helpful. Thank you. I have another question, but I'll wait till next round.
Board Member Martinez.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say, go Lobos. They play in about 10 minutes. In the first round of the NIT. Great questions that we've had, my colleagues. I do want to ask a few questions that have not necessarily been addressed. What does the staffing look like for math teachers in our middle schools? It wasn't necessarily addressed in the report, but do we have vacancies across the district where this might be some kind of an issue with our students not being able to be where they need to be?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. Our current staffing model is based off of student enrollment. We have staffing formula. That's how we give out FTEs based on how many students are in each grade level. So for example, let's say 100 sixth graders. We have state statute we have to follow for schools. State statute we have to follow for class size, as well as negotiated agreement statutes we have to follow for class load and the amount of preps that teachers might teach. So with 100 sixth graders, for example, we're going to need 4 sections. So that could be one teacher for sixth grade, teaching 4 classes. That teacher might also pick up a 7th grade class. So if you're looking at a middle school of that size, it might be roughly 2.5 math teachers. 3 grades though, remember. That's the tricky part. So, and with that, as far as like how many openings we currently have in the district, I was meeting with our Chief of Human Resources yesterday. I believe in middle school, we have 4 total openings, but that's across all middle school content areas. The principals do a wonderful job of asking staff members who are highly qualified on their staff in math, but might be teaching science, for example, to pick up another content or another section to teach that class. And we also utilize our long-term subs to cover those classrooms as well.
And Board Member Martinez, I'm going to do a very official research tally right now because we have principals in the room and they know who's teaching the classes better than we do. So principals, if you have a non-certified math teacher teaching any of your math classes, will you raise your hand? And if you are a middle school principal, will you raise your hand? Just to get an idea of like, thank you. That was very official.
Thank you for that. Okay, I might have a follow-up with that, but also, if I could, Madam President, if I could, looking at, and it was actually brought up during public comment, but I had the same question of what is being done. I have young children who are in elementary. What is being done, what interventions, what strategies are being done at the elementary level to help ensure that our students are ready to take the assessment in 7th grade? Yeah.
All right. So, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, thank you for that question. One thing that really resonates with me is that term instructional coherence. So as we look across the pre-K through 12 structure, really thinking about how we ensure that our elementary students are prepared for what's coming, not only in middle, but beyond. And so to that is our elementary commitment. And so in that effort, what we do is we've identified priority standards in English language arts and in math that essentially, and it's a dangerous word, but we'd like to promise you that students will master. So we know that these are really high leverage standards. And if students can walk out of especially 4th and 5th grade, knowing how to do, and I'll just give you some examples, equivalent fractions, that's going to set them up for what's next. And if you've helped a 4th grader with homework recently, yes, exactly. We know problem solving is another one of those really critical standards that a 4th and a 5th grader need to master in order to move into the 6th, 7th, 8th grade and beyond space. So I won't go through every single priority standard, but I want to assure you that we have that coherence and really thinking about which of those standards have longevity so that when the students are ready to use them in middle school, they feel very confident about their skills.
And Board Member Martinez and members of the board, the other thing I'd like to note is that there was a new math bill that just passed through the legislature that really does target particularly elementary school. It does have screening for elementary school math. It has parent notification for elementary school math. It changes the license requirements for elementary math. And so there has been a lot of effort at the state level to focus on elementary math as well, because math doesn't start instruction in 6th grade. One of the reasons that this is a goal is because 9th grade is kind of a gatekeeper to pursuing high school graduation. And so really looking back to 8th grade to 3rd grade to even, the early grades. And so that new bill will really focus on elementary math.
Yeah, thank you for that. I will say, what is the bill number? I'm sorry.
Yes, the bill number is Senate Bill 29.
Thank you. I just wanted to say my son is in 5th grade. Math is his favorite subject, and he teaches me. So shout out to Ches Focanes. But yeah, thank you all for all you do.
Thank you. My question falls also to what Board Member Board Member Martinez stated. And it's just part of the, I know we're at 21.5% proficient with our 6th graders in math. But what evidence do we have that our K-5 system is effectively building foundational numeracy, and where exactly is that system breaking down?
Yeah, okay.
He's like, yes, I do.
Let's put this one. Board President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. So if you look, so a really clean way of looking at how we're doing is the stated summative assessment. So if you look at our proficiency rates, which are available, of course, on the APS dashboard on the website. If you look there, you'll see that we do have that decline that happens in 6th grade. And then we do tend to see that decline happen year after year once we get, so basically what happens there, it's where things change from being more foundational to being abstract, which I think we talked about before in some of these progress monitoring, but that's where we tend to see the decline. And I know personally, because Dr. Marlewine has had us look at too, just looking at the percentage of students that come in on grade level and then where do they end up at the end of the year. So a lot of times it's just making sure that we're keeping them there or that we're giving them extra support to get them on track. So yeah, it's there. So That's one place to look in terms of data, but I will let my colleagues talk about what we do about it.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. One of the other strategies, not in here, but one of the other strategies we are using as leadership team, we are working with our elementary assistant superintendents. Assistant Superintendent Chavez is in back of me right now. She's our lead assistant superintendent for elementary school. And she's been really challenging us to build coherence within goal 1 and goal 2, and as well as goal 3, so that we're not looking at each level individually, but she's looking at how she can support goal 2 with early literacy and with math, so that as our elementary students are being handed off into middle school, it's a clean handoff, and the collaboration is starting to gain momentum.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, I would just add to my colleagues' responses that we do progress monitor math scores in our elementary school. So our high quality instructional material that we've adopted is through iReady, so they're using the entire curriculum, which includes assessments that we give that are very similar to what the middle schoolers are taking. So we can pull the same type of data by domain and standard to see where students may have achievement gaps and pivot accordingly.
Yeah, I was just concerned because I didn't see anything about elementary within your root cause analysis, because I think that's very a problem, especially when we heard a teacher cite that there were some problems, especially with math and what's going on in elementary school. My other question comes to, lost my little graphic page. It comes off of Martinez-Yazzie and your disaggregated, the graph that shows all of the intersection. And my question there is a great concern, because I feel our students in Martinez and Yazzie they're 15% below that gradient that you have there. And it also says, especially when we look at ELL, special education, and our Native American students, with federal and state guidelines in how learning needs to take place, especially with IEPs and those fundamental places that we have to include these legal required supports. I'm concerned legally, are we following those guidelines? Are we ensuring that we are implementing adequate IEPs? Are we ensuring that those students are receiving the supports they need? And the only reason I'm concerned is because of how we're taking on this concept of, what is it called? I just lost it. Inclusion. I often have felt that inclusion shouldn't be the foundation of why we move special education kids or pull kids out of supported systems, because that's an individual need. It's required through an IEP, but I find that inclusion is the reason for why we're doing and moving kids out of secure systems, but not also giving them the supports they need to have an adequate education. So when looking at the data from Martinez and Yazzie, the question is, are we following and giving the legal required supports for those students? Because I don't see it on the data. So I pose you that question.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, I think that there's a multiple facets to answer your question. The first thing is, yes, we are following the guidelines to the best of our ability at all times. It's kind of our North Star. We want to be legally compliant in everything we do, and we definitely are following the guidelines. Some of what we've been trying to do is, we know that some of our subgroups, especially when we talk about our special education kids, they need access to grade level content. And so we want to ensure that they are in the layer 1 environment, which would be what you would consider the main classroom. We also then have, our special ed teachers obviously are the experts in this, but they're writing IEPs then to fill in the gaps for when there's, a breakdown in the layer 1 instruction. So we want to get all of our students, our SPED students, all of our Martinez Yazzie students, we want to give them access to grade level. Then we also want to give them what we would call layer 2 instruction. Is when we look at our data, where are they not demonstrating proficiency, and we want to get them more time on task. Same thing with our SPED students. And then the IEPs give specific minutes for them to meet areas where there's still a need. And that's what you're getting to. Are we following those with integrity? And my answer is yes. I'm not saying there's not one breakdown here or there somewhere. We're a very big system, but we talk about it and we're laser focused on making sure that all criteria is met. I'll default to Chief Jed if she wants to add anything to that.
Board President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, I concur with Dr. Mallerwine, and I also want to just share that I agree. The IEP is what drives the services and the accommodations that the student requires, not the philosophy of inclusion. And so we have worked, and we're always working systems parallel to what we talk about here, but we are working through our special ed team to improve the writing of our IEPs so that they really are taking into account all of the information we know about the student, which includes information from our teachers and our parents, so that we are making the appropriate placement. It is true that sometimes an inclusionary classroom is maybe not the appropriate placement, but in those cases, we want to ensure that the student is still accessing layer 1 high quality instruction. They need to be getting the same standards, let's say, that a first grader who is in an inclusive classroom would be getting if they are in, let's say, a small group classroom.
And my other question is, it goes on the same line of what Board Member Benavides talked about, including families. Because based on federal requirements, families are supposed to be included. And so it's also that reasoning of IEPs, ELL students, and even Native American students, but also just the pure fact of Martinez and Yazzie. That's another added support for those students, and that we are doing those things to make sure that we are not only following federal requirements, but within the state of New Mexico, Martinez Yazzie is the other reason that we have to make sure that we are implementing and doing everything needed for those students. Thank you. Anybody else? Second round. Okay. Board Member Jackson.
Two. Okay. So I believe that we have a textbook adoption coming up. So my question is, what is the strategy that you will use with the upcoming textbook adoption to make an impact on middle school math? And how will those high quality instructional materials be used in all of our classrooms? May I add a caveat? With fidelity and with urgency, and making sure that the materials that the taxpayer is buying and paying for are actually used in the classroom.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, we do have a K-12 math adoption upcoming. So during the 26-27 school year, we'll be going through our adoption process. I have to say I'm very proud of the work that the instructional materials team does. They have a very robust process that includes getting a lot of teacher voice, a lot of community and parent voice, and looking at our materials, making sure that they do meet the standards of high quality instructional material that we expect them to. That being said, as we go through that process, we will be paying extra attention to this adoption because we believe the high quality instructional material is really the floor of where we begin with our instruction. And so we definitely want it to be standards based, but then there are other criteria that we're looking at. But if we can get a high quality instructional material that the practitioners will use, then we know we're starting with our standards. And so we really want to make sure that we are getting materials that teachers can trust, they can use. We're doing the professional learning that goes with supporting that, not just with the teachers, but also with our principals and assistant principals so that they can support the teachers in using those high quality instructional materials. So we really think about the curriculum as the floor. You can count on us to give you good materials. And so from there, then we can begin to do our deeper, more personalized learning, our interventions, and help the teachers to build on that curriculum. I believe with good training, professional learning, and a strong rollout, we will see an increase in the use of the high quality instructional materials that we adopt.
Thank you. I have another one, but I'll go down.
Okay. Board Member Stork.
My question was already asked, so.
All right, Board Member Betson.
So I am in, I would say foreign ground here. I'm gonna have to ask Courtney if this is allowed, because you know Robert's rules and I don't. Am I allowed to make a movement, a different movement? Basically, particularly given the data indicates that the goals are unlikely to be met by the end of the academic year, I move to table the vote on Progress Monitoring Report 2.1 and 2.2. At this point, moving forward with the vote does not support a thorough and informed decision, I think. I think it feels rushed because, I mean, we heard teachers here that specifically said to vote no. I don't want to vote no. I have confidence in the superintendent, but I think that we need to see more what's going to happen between now and the end of the year to see if we're meeting this goal. Because to me right now, it doesn't seem like we're going to meet the goal. I know that you're confident, you think that you'll be able to do it, but from a teacher's perspective, I would say it would be hard to meet the goal by the end of the year. And so I don't know, are we able to make another motion or not?
So I will wait to defer to the parliamentarian unless you want me to just go ahead and answer.
Well, everything I'm seeing here says she can.
Yeah.
So we have to vote on it.
Well, so there's a motion on the table already.
So I have to wait until that one.
Well, and so what I would say, there's a motion on the table already. We are about to finish up the discussion of the progress monitoring report. As we go through that discussion, we go back to those 4 questions, right, at the end. And you will then have the opportunity to either decline to accept. You can just do a straight no vote. Like if you personally do not feel that the 4 parameters have been met, you are completely free to vote. You can also, at that time, I don't think right now is the appropriate time because there are still questions that are being asked.
Okay.
But you have the ability to amend the motion. But to amend the motion, I do believe you need a second to amend that motion to table. So we're not quite there yet. I think you should allow us to continue this discussion. And then at that time, you can either decide to just vote to not accept, and that's your personal right to do so. Or we can potentially go through the process of amending to table.
Okay, thank you so much.
Questions, more questions. Board Member Benavides?
No.
Board Member Martinez? Board Member Norman? Board Member?
Nobody else has?
No.
Oh, well, I do. Okay. All right. So, and this might actually help to answer the question that was just discussed, is that, again, I'm going to go back to what I mentioned earlier about the fact that I noticed that from the last progress monitoring report we had to this progress monitoring report, this time there was an introduction of new strategies. And so my question is, can you explain why there was an introduction of new strategies, particularly as it particularly as it pertains to the progress we're monitoring support, and how the addition of those new strategies supports our ability to understand what it is that you guys are attempting to, sorry, I didn't write this part out, help us understand.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. Yes, we did see real growth from beginning of the year to middle of the year. But as we compared our middle of the year growth to previous years, we do see that we are off track. Because we are off track, we did go through the process of creating a root cause analysis. One of the things that, like I had spoken earlier, is we need to tighten our execution. So when you look at the strategies that are in these two current documents, the strategies, the plan actions, the why it matters, I tightened them up so that they would kind of follow our 7 core strategies of, for example, just-in-time scaffolding. So these are practices that our teaching and learning team is currently going out and supporting teachers with. We also have conceptual depth, or building learning through like concrete representational and abstract type of thinking. So really connecting these ideals to these strategies to specifically support our focus groups within Yazzie Martinez and African American.
So just to confirm what you just said, for you, you are seeing growth. There is growth on this document. It's just comparatively to the year before, it's maybe not as deep or as it's a little bit less than it was in the year before, but you are seeing growth.
Right, and we look at every year it's a new group of students. So where we started out lower at the beginning of the year, this year, than we did the previous year. For middle of the year, we did make some traction. We made some growth, some gains, but that growth, those gains, does not mean that we will meet our goal. We know that we know the strategies are sound, but we also know that we need to tighten up on the execution process. And that's where you'll see a lot of emphasis within the both progress monitoring docs 2.1 and 2.2 is really focusing on the 90-day plan and using the 90-day plan as the main mechanism for change in the schools.
Okay. I'm done.
You're done?
Mhm.
Okay.
I have
Oh,
one more question.
Yeah,
Oh,
Board
like
member.
something just came up.
Yeah.
Okay,
Go
board,
ahead.
Go
okay,
ahead.
board member Britson.
So what evidence do you have from within APS that the strategy, when implemented with fidelity, produces the level of acceleration that you're going to need to reach the goal?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, earlier this evening, Superintendent Blakey recognized a handful of schools within 2.1 and 2.2 who have made great gains from beginning of the year to middle of the year. What we're seeing in the schools who are making these gains is that their execution of the strategies are showing growth within their sites, especially with the Yazzie Martinez and African American students. We are also seeing that through our coaching process and looking at 90-day plans with principals, that there are pieces that we need to tighten up on the execution so that we can support the schools in starting to accelerate their growth.
I want, Board Member Benson, members of the boards, I just wanted to piggyback on what Mr. Sanchez said, because I think through the report, what we were trying to articulate too is that there are several schools that have had significant gains, like you heard I was going to say this morning, but it was just a couple hours ago, from several of the principals that are here. I think that what we're really trying to do is leverage that work system-wide. And so we have pockets of where we see growth. We have pockets of schools that are really seeing something significant that they're working on. And Mr. Sanchez and his team are trying to take those strategies and use that to leverage to a system level. Many of the principals in this room are able to connect with their colleagues to say, this is what we were doing that's working, that's not working. We have adapted our professional development for teachers, where teachers submit what they want to present on to other teachers that are these promising practices in the district that we see in pockets that really can benefit at a system level, how it's used across the district. And so we do think that we can make significant gains because we've seen some of the schools be able to do it, and we can leverage those strategies.
Thank you.
Go ahead, board member Estrada.
Thank you. That was a really great question. I just wanted to go back to the chart, figure 1 of the data. I'm on 2.1, and our goal for this is 22.6%. Our projected goal for the end of the year is 21.5%. So I just wanted to clarify for those watching and those in the audience what Member Betson was talking about that projection, not being able to meet that. And I also just wanted to share again what the team had said, is that this is a whole different set of students. So we can't compare really 2024, 2025 to this year's targets. So it's kind of interesting how we have to look at these reports. But I do want to also say that there is potential for big jumps because we've seen it before. And I think that that's really important to point out as well. So I know all of us here have confidence in the team. I think the way this chart is describing that we are not going to make it to the end of the year is what's concerning. So I just wanted to point that out. It's not necessarily a question, but just a comment that I think we're all seeing here on the dais and we're concerned about. And I think people sitting in the boardroom and those watching online needed some clarification of where those numbers were coming from. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? No. Well, thank you. And I just want to acknowledge we do have Board Member Benavides set out to put a table.
Betson.
Betson, I'm sorry. Oh, why did I say that for? I know she's sitting next to it. So I want to acknowledge that and want to know if there was a formal motion. Go ahead.
May I just clarify really quickly? So I respectfully, Board Member Betson, I feel like that moment has passed and we've had a very full and engaging discussion. And I would like to keep the current motion, which is to either accept or not accept the progress monitoring report. But if we do go through with your motion to table, I just want to remind you and remind everybody that if we bring it back, we'll just be focusing on new strategies and that the data is going to be the same. And so just please keep that in mind.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Do you want to continue or we're going to proceed with the vote then?
We can proceed with the vote.
All right. We do have a vote on the floor. So we'll go ahead and let me make sure I'm doing this right. Let's go ahead and thank you, everyone. This was a pretty in-depth discussion. And now we will vote on whether or not we will accept this monitoring report. As a point of clarity, we're voting accept this report as a formal acknowledgement that we have had a satisfactory conversation with the administration and have a deeper understanding of how the current reality for students lined up with our vision for them. In order to accept, we must answer yes to the following 3 questions. Does this reality of this report meet our vision of the goal? Let me see your heads. Okay. Is there growth toward the vision? Okay. Is there a strategy and a plan sufficient to cause growth toward the vision? Okay. If the answer to all three is yes, then the board can accept the monitoring report, confident that data is accurate and the superintendent is performing. So I believe at this moment, we are ready to entertain them. We already did the motion, but we'll call for the vote.
Janelle Astorga,
Yes.
Rebecca Betson,
No.
Joshua Martinez.
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Reiki Bowman,
No.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito.
Yes. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to action item 7.1. Thank you. You got it. All right, we're going to consider 7.1, consider approval of revisions and renewal of the Indian policies and procedures. Our presenters are Jessica Martinez, policy analyst, and Tanya Campos, chief equity and engagement. I would also like to call for a motion and a second.
I move to approve the revisions and renewal of the Indian policies and procedures. This is Member Jackson.
I'll second. This is Member Martinez.
Okay, board member Jackson, motion to approve the revisions and renewal of Indian policies and procedures, and board member Martinez second. I will give you ladies the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, President Tomarito, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. We're here today to ask for your approval for the school year 25-26 P129 Indian Education Policies and Procedures. So this policy and procedures, the crux of it is for our impact aid application. We do need these policies and procedures approved annually for the Native American Impact Aid. So while it is a compliance document, we see it more than a compliance document. It really is a document that is really showcasing authentic collaboration between the district, our Pueblos, tribes and nations, our students, families, and community. So just a little background on this. Again, we do this for approval every year. The first part is that it does go to our Indian Policy and Procedure Committee. They started to review it in December and finalized their recommendations in January. At that point, it was sent out to our Pueblos, tribes and nations for them to start reviewing. And then at our spring consultation on March 3rd is when we had that discussion with our tribal leaders, and they verbally gave us their recommendations and comments, as well as then they also submitted written comments and feedback to us. So what you have here today is the revision from our policy committee, as well as revisions from our Pueblo, tribes and nations. And it is in your approval at this point. Thank you.
Discussion, anyone? No?
Madam President, I don't think that I have any discussion really. Really, if the tribal leaders, these are the revisions that they asked for, it has been vetted through them. I guess I just want verbal confirmation that these are the changes that they've requested. And the only thing is that I would just ask that any typos are corrected in this document that I sent in. So I think other than that, as long as we have confirmation that this is what the tribal leaders have been asking for, then I'm good with it.
President Tomarito, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, yes. So as I mentioned, our Pueblos, tribes and nations, our tribal leaders did verbally give feedback at our consultation on March 3rd. And then I received several written comments and clarifications afterwards. And all of those were incorporated into the document that you have today.
Okay, anyone else?
Thank you for your work.
And yes, thank you for acknowledging my concerns. And I know that this was a heavy load, and I thank you for doing the work. All right, so we will go ahead and call for a vote.
Janelle Astorga,
Yes.
Rebecca Betson,
Yes.
Joshua Martinez,
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Boikia Bowman,
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Naldo Tomorito.
Yes. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to discussion item 8.1. And this is going to be our fiscal year 2027 budget presentation on special education. Our presenters are Renetta Apodaca, Chief Financial Officer, David Vigil, Executive Director, Budget and Strategic Planning, Sherry Jett, Chief Academic Officer, and TC Reiser, Assistant Superintendent of Special Education. I give the floor to Dr. Blakey.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, this evening we are here to answer questions you may have about our second presentation of the budget, which is the special education budget. A presentation was shared with you that provides an overview of how that budget works, and it is included as part of tonight's agenda. As outlined in those materials, special education funding comes from a combination of state and federal sources and supports the staff, services, and resources needed to serve students with disabilities across the school district. Today, APS provides services to more than 21,000 students through their IEPs. We have a short video that provides a high-level overview of this budget, and after the video, we will be happy to stand for any questions that you have.
Albuquerque Public Schools is committed to improving a comprehensive special education program. The district strives to uphold the Yazzie Martinez decision, prioritizing high-quality instruction, individualized education programs, and systems that improve student outcomes. Funding for our special education programs comes from state and federal resources. The majority of funding from the operational budget supports teacher salaries, as well as supplies, contract services, and professional development. The federal budget mostly supplies funding for school and classroom support, as well as equipment, software, and more. The APS Special Education Department follows a budget that is directly tied to maintaining policy and compliance. This includes adherence to regulations such as IDEA Part B, which mandates a free appropriate public education, as well as providing individualized education programs, or IEPs, evaluations, and necessary related services. And the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, which requires non-discrimination, accessibility, and effective communication for all individuals. By having this budget in place, we ensure our special education programming is fully aligned with the district's goals and strategic plan. This funding is critical. It guarantees students with disabilities have access to grade-level instruction and support, which in turn helps to improve attendance rates. Our financial resources also ensure comprehensive access through inclusionary practices, targeted intervention, and essential support services. At Albuquerque Public Schools, we know how critical it is to provide these services to our students. These resources ensure that our students receive the support they need to succeed.
So with that, we stand for any questions you have about the special education budget.
Okay. Floor is open. Anyone want to go first?
I have questions about budget, but not specifically special ed, and I'm just wondering, I did send it in and I never got a response or anything. So I know you guys had some problems getting some of my questions. So I'm just wondering, did you receive my questions about budget overall?
Board President, Member Betson, members of the board, we can follow up and make sure that it was probably through an RFI if it wasn't connected to an agenda item. for this agenda, because of the way it's posted, it has to be about special education. We do have at the next board meeting, I believe, is the full budget. And so that would be a time to ask any of the operational budget questions. We can follow up and make sure that we have your questions.
Okay.
But there will be an opportunity to ask questions about the operational budget. You'll get that for the next meeting, yes.
Okay. Do we know, can I ask, I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Do we have over across the district, do we have, are we losing teachers in special ed? I know generally, special ed sometimes doesn't lose teachers like other, programs do. Are we losing teachers in special ed because of the budget in the coming year?
Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Blakey. This coming year, we expect to see less openings for our special education staff. We have reduced those openings over the years, so I don't think we expect to lose teachers. We have plenty of openings to fill positions.
And I'll follow up on Dr. Reiser, just for clarification, we aren't district-wide, we're not at a point where we would lose teachers to any sort of RIF we don't have too many teachers. There could be teachers placed at certain schools because enrollment might lose a teacher teaching at a specific school, but losing teachers throughout the district, we're not at a place where we would be losing teachers in that way.
Okay, thank you.
Courtney, Board Member Jackson, no questions? And I'm sure you guys saw my long list of questions. And I want to go through this APS indicator data. I noticed that there are red met state target, yes or no. So I know that within the state requirement, it's either pass or fail. So if you see a red column that says no, does that mean we didn't meet the indicator?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, yes, that means we did not meet the indicator and we are working towards meeting it.
And I know there's a report that's compiled by PED. Were there specific areas concerning those indicators on what needed to be met, how it needed to be met, and then you have a year or so to report how you're going to improve that indicator?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, the New Mexico Public Education Department focuses on different indicators each year. I am able to see many of the indicators each count date that we submit our district data, but not all of them are addressed each year.
Okay, because I know, was it last year when you had a report from PED that you didn't meet 5 of those indicators? And you had a year to compile and fix those indicators?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, yes, there were 5, and they were specifically around IEP compliance and using data when we look at how we place our students in programs.
I just want to also state to the superintendent, I would appreciate if the board would get that report so they know specifically if we're not meeting these targets and why we're not meeting them, because they fall into graduation rates, suspension, expulsion, how many kids on our IEPs, how many were taken off. So they're really good indicators on how we're doing within special education. So I would appreciate if we get a copy of that, of whatever was issued. My second question comes into, I know on your graph, you stated there was a impact aid. There was a little sliver of a slice in that pie for impact aid. And in my question, the answer that was stated was, I was asking specifically about those impact aid funds. Because if you look at the federal requirements, the second part within those requirements is that if you have a child who resides on Indian lands or federal lands and is a child with a disability, those funds, whatever they allocate those funds, is to go back to those specific students. Now, in my question that I posed to you, you stated that those funds go back into the general special education budget or funding. So I'm concerned about that. So I would like to know how, moving forward, are we going to make sure those funds are being used for our Native American students, especially if they are categorized and under Martinez and Yazzie? Because this is another reason why we're failing those kids. Because if federal requirements and state requirements are not being followed, and if these kids have supported services that's supposed to be rendered to them, and we're not doing that, then I need to ask special education and the department, why are we not doing that?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. So impact aid money is for multiple purposes. It really looks at the military community, your federal property or Indian land students, but it also looks at your students from low income property. So it covers a lot. We do receive about $185,000 of the $22 million federal budget is impact aid. And that money goes to supplement the different items that we have. It specifically supports our assistive technology equipment, our specialized instructional materials, our adaptive equipment and materials for students with disabilities, as well as any of the mandated individual education program items. And all of those items are much more in cost, much higher in cost than the actual amount of impact aid. But I can follow up and see how that is supporting our, those specific role groups.
Well, I do want, yes, but I do really want to know how many Native American students are being serviced with funding that is supposed to go to them specifically. And I've been asking this question for years, and I've never gotten an answer. So, but now that I see it in your little graph, that begged me to differ that I would pose this question because I think it's critical, especially with Martinez and Yazzie. And especially if Native American students with disabilities are the lowest performing students in any district. And nobody asks the critical questions on how those students are being served. And I think that you have to strategically support that and figure out how we're going to do that. Because I think Indian Ed also needs to be a big partner in that. And how we're going to make sure that those funds are going not only to parents, but to those students specifically. So thank you. Any other questions? I'm sorry. What is that?
Somebody's phone said you're welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Board President Toma Warito, I just wanted to ask a follow-up question as to what you just said. So I can see that you've got your question and I see the answer, and if I'm understanding correctly, we're not getting a specific answer about exactly how the funds are being directed to Native Americans with disabilities. Am I understanding that correctly? So it seems like we've got an answer, but the answer doesn't actually respond to your question, which is what portion of those funds is being strategically directed toward improving service and outcomes for Native students with disabilities. And the answer we got is we have a certain amount of money and it's used for special education, therapists, specialized instructional support and assistive, but it doesn't actually respond to your question about what portion is going to Native American students with disabilities.
Well, if we take the funding amount, it should also equal up to the services being rendered for those Native American students. And so that's the question. And I would just really like us to not only consider how we're implementing that, but also that it's, I just want to be in compliance with a lot of things that are going on. And I feel many times we're not in compliance. And so I'm just trying to draw attention because who knows further down the road that somebody who sees that is going to probably do different than just us trying to fix the problem. Because they could take it more seriously and take the information and do what they need to create correction. Okay, thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
Board Member Benson.
So last board meeting, we were still waiting from the state, how much we were going to get per student. Have we received that amount? Or are we still waiting for that unit?
You're still waiting.
And how, I'm curious how we make budgets for next year without knowing what we have to spend.
Go ahead, Mr. Vihel.
Thank you for that question, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. As we go about building the budgets, there are a lot of factors that go into the SEG calculation. And again, as you well know, that they are based on membership in the district. And so one of those data points is the 80th day, which is certified. The other data point that goes into is the 120th day membership. The 120th day membership is currently under review, and the PED has not sent us that data to certify. We have sent it up to them, and they have not certified that. The other thing is that they used the legislation that has passed over from the last legislative session to go ahead and set that unit value. And so that unit value, there's a spring budget workshop conference that is actually happening this week. Typically what happens is that unit value is released during that conference. Now, there's been some delays in the certifying of the 120th day data. There was also a delay in setting the final unit value this year due to some legislative requirements that allowed the PED to set the final unit value for this year going into next year. And so those delays have caused a little bit of delay with us putting those final numbers together to put the final estimates together. And so typically what we have is we have a better handle on what those estimates may be, and we use that to build these budgets. Now, what we don't want to do is we don't want to bring you inaccurate data based on or inaccurate budgets based on data that's not quite certified yet, or that we don't have necessarily a good handle on. So these are preliminary estimates based on the best available data that we have at the moment, and with with $1 billion allocation that comes from the SEG, we want to make sure that we have the best numbers available to provide that operational side of the budget, because it is a vast majority of the operating budget for the district.
And thank you, President Tomorito and members of the board. The other thing to note is this is actually a good year because we had a short legislative session. So usually it's even longer because we have to wait for the legislative session to end and for the governor to sign the budget before we get official numbers. And so every year this happens where the budget team projects based on, we submit the numbers so we kind of have a good estimate on what the funding looks like because we can see what the numbers Mr. Vihel talked about. And then we estimate the SEG value to give the budgets, but it would be impossible to create the budget and turn it into the state and have the schools be able to create their budgets if we waited to get the unit value. So this happens every year. And as a board, this has come up as far as like the state doing this rolling year after year budget. They don't do like a 2-year budget. So when it's a long legislative session, it often takes even longer before we get the actual budget. And then, and we'll go into this more at the operational one, but then also every January, they reset the unit value. So sometimes in January, the budget goes up and down again.
So can I ask 2 more questions?
Sure.
Okay. So your answer created another question for me. So for many years, district funding has been based on the 80th day and the 120th day enrollment count. However, I've gotten several constituents that have called me and said that you're using something called a survival ratio model. And I'm just wondering, this survival ratio model is based on the next 3 years and how enrollment's going to decline is what I'm understanding. I might have it wrong. So I'm wondering, could you explain why we're using this budgeting based on projection declines rather than on the 180th day and the 120th day, which is what we've always done in the past? And what is if we are basing it on that declining ratio, what's happening with the funds between the amount that we're getting at the 180 or the 80th day and the 120th day and that declining amount? What's happening with those funds in between? I don't know if does that make sense? The question that I'm asking.
Yes, President Tomorito, Member Betson, and members of the board, it does make sense. However, we don't use that for special ed. And so since this is the special ed budget presentation.
So wait,
I think you could either put it as an RFI, which I think somebody has, and we put that in at a glance, or we can definitely go over it at the next board meeting when we talk. That is how we fund the operational budget.
okay. So then my last question is, can you provide us, and it doesn't have to be tonight, can we get a side-by-side budget from last year's budget, this year's budget, and next year's budget for special ed so we can see, how it varies and how it's changed over the last and how it's going to change for next year?
Yes, I think those are posted and we can get those to you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and if I can just jump in, so if anybody is listening and would like to look right now, all of those budgets are posted on the website. So anybody has the ability to go in and pull those.
Oh,
yeah, they're on the website.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Board Member Storga.
On that same note, I just wanted to hear a little bit from you, the difference between last year's budget and this year's budget as it pertains to educational assistance. I know that last year there was a lot more conversations around educational assistants not being as supported as we want them to be because they're very valued in special education classrooms. So is there any difference when it comes to that specific department or that specific role?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, there isn't any difference. Our educational assistant numbers stayed basically the same unless an IEP directed that a student needed adult focused supervision. So more supervision from an educational assistant. So then those numbers typically grow.
Okay, so I didn't realize that. Thank you so much. So if an IEP suggests that we need a new or more EAs, then that's how we would assume that.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, it's an individualized education program decision. So if a specific student might need supports, direct support from, we call it adult supervised supervision, adult focused supervision, sorry, then another educational assistant would be allocated to the school.
And do we have it in the budget prepared? Are we prepared if for some reason we do need extra EAs? Would they be covered in this budget?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, yes, the district ensures that if there are compliance items that are needed, that they are covered.
Thank you.
I have a question. I know my past question was about inclusion. Now, I know currently we're moving many students into inclusion. Do you have a rough number and the cost of doing that in trying to with those students moving into inclusion, are we negating supports? Are we including their supports? Are we giving what the IEP calls for? Or are we taking away? My concern is, especially when I hear about the behavioral issues that are occurring, were those students also based on LRE confined more in special education services in a classroom, or did we move those kids out to put them in general ed to provide supports additionally to those students within the general ed classroom?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, if you look at the indicators, which you talked about earlier, indicator 5 is our indicator, and you can see that we are red and out of compliance, which is why we are focused on least restrictive environment for students. And that memo you refer to also really pushed the district to look at least restrictive environment, because we are quite a ways below where we should be federally or within the state. And but every single student that is placed in an inclusion setting, it is based on data. Schools do that through an IEP. No student should be moved without that being considered in a student's IEP and based on data. So how it affects funding, it depends on the IEP, because funding is based on students' IEPs, the number of minutes in their IEP, and then that determines funding at the school level. Most schools maintain the majority of their staff. They might have had slight changes because we made some changes with our head teachers and the supports for IEPs to be in compliance.
So my other question to that is, there has been information that has come out about outsourcing to a company that will handle our behavioral kids, that we are gonna, I forget the name of it, but it's going around and many people are concerned whether or not that's the department's gonna take that route, because we haven't been informed as a board. So I wanted to know, clear that up right now as we're speaking. Are we seeking an outside agency to handle our kids with high behavioral issues?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, no, we are not pursuing any outside contracts.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Thank you for your time and thank you for considering our questions. We appreciate it. Okay. So now we are going to go on to 8.2. And that's an update on our community engagement committee. Presenter is our board member Astorga.
Thank you, President Tomorito. We had a really great community engagement committee meeting yesterday. So I appreciate all of our members for joining in. I also just wanted to quickly flag that the previous community engagement meeting, we had board members attend that were not on the committee meeting, and I allowed them to speak. That is wrong of me to do according to Robert's rules, so I apologize. So you are welcome to attend any meeting. We will just not be able to allow you to be part of the discussion. So I apologize for that, but please send me questions or anything in advance if there's anything that you all would like me to say or any questions you have. So I'm just gonna go through the agenda of what we did yesterday so I don't miss anything. So the first part was creating a process for presenting at the Community Engagement Committee meeting. So what we decided was we want an opportunity for community members, organizations, students to come to the Community Engagement Committee meetings and share any ideas that they have that would help us do our job as a board in order to engage with the community. So we put together that process, and that is on Diligent, I believe, in the Community Engagement Committee notes. But we did do some edits on that process and that document. So some of those edits just included ensuring that if a presenter would like to come to the Community Engagement Committee meeting, that they have a connection to one of our goals or guardrails so that it's specific to board work and not just a presentation around what an organization is doing or how they would like us to come visit them, but more specifically, how the board members can benefit from their presentation. So would you like me to read those additions to you all? No, we're okay. Okay, perfect. So that was something that we did on that, as we just added some of that language. The next thing was we had an update from the superintendent on how and where board members might meet with families. So again, like we've seen before in the past, during our at a glance messages, the superintendent will post if she'll be at any schools or if there's any events that are happening. So those are the best ways to be at any schools or be at any events and coordinate with community members. We also have our outreach as board members. So if an organization comes to you and invites you, that's another way to meet with community members. But we would like to follow still the same process of if you are going to an event, or if you are going to a meeting with any community members, especially at a school, if you can just please let board services know so that we know if there is a quorum. That is the most important thing. And I know that there had been some dialogue around if board members can show up to pick up and drop off during school hours, and that be a way of communication with parents. That discussion led to us saying it might not be the best route because people just want to get in and out. So that would be a great place for us to share flyers for our town halls if you want to do something like that, but not necessarily to speak with our community. Am I missing anything else, Superintendent Blakey?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that was it.
Yes, but if you are interested, those events and those schools will be at an at a glance. So you'll have an opportunity to visit there. The next item was a discussion on goals and tracking processes. So last year we had created goals as a board in order to increase engagement among students, families, and I believe there was one more, and board members. Thank you. So we discussed a little bit about that tracking chart, and we really want to be intentional about board members tracking their outreach engagements. So I would like to ask all board members, if you attend any type of outreach event, please let us know, and you can send that to the board president and she will put it in at a glance so we know where you went, who you connected with, and you don't have to give us too many details, but just so we're able to track that and let us know that we are going out into the community, so we have that information. And I think it's especially important that the community knows that board members are being intentional about that work and really making sure that we're being present at different locations and really responding to community.
Quick question about
Yes, of
that.
course.
Madam President, Chair Astorga,
Remember Martina.
thank you. Question about that. What does that look like specifically? Is that like if we're attending some kind of community event, does that mean that we're speaking on behalf of the board or on behalf of ourselves? Or we're just attending? For example, Saturday, I attended a West Side town hall, a legislative follow-up town hall. I didn't necessarily speak or anything, but I was there. You know, they introduced me. So yeah, just want to get clarification.
Yeah, that's a great question. So board outreaches are considered only when 2 board members are present. And that's when a community organization, student, a PTA, anybody invites the board. So our engagement processes are when the board is having an event like our town halls and we are inviting community. And then our outreach is when community is inviting us. But we would love 2 members to attend in order for it to quote unquote count, just because it's easier for us to interpret things alone than it would be for 2 members. So if I heard something and I can talk with Member Betson about it and say, what did you hear? So I think it's that way is just easiest. And like I said, when you attend those outreach events, you can just send a quick note to the board president so she can put it at a glance so we can track that.
A question.
Yes.
Only because we had the state basketball tournament, and I know some of us attended some games, but we didn't know they were there. So because we were at what game were you at? Gallup, and I was at the Gallup game. So but we weren't sitting together. So, and then I was like, oh, did other board members go?
So that would not count.
I was at the Highland game too. So and then
Yeah.
she was at Highland.
Right.
Yeah. But so, yeah, I was just asking.
Do you have something, Dr. Albright?
That would not count for this.
Okay.
But I would need to know that in order to track quorum. So
Okay,
if you're going
yeah.
to any school related, it's really helpful to let board services know so we can make sure that kind of thing is checked.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, next time.
So one more thing that I would like to say around the goals and tracking process is that there was also conversation around how we track attendance. So board services created an online link. So there will be Chromebooks at every event where it's easy to sign in, and we're tracking the demographics of who shows up so that we are intentional on making sure that our goals are met. So are you a student? Are you a parent? Things like that. So if you want more information on that, we can definitely get it to you, but just know that that's available. Let's see, next, we had a discussion on our United game event. So that will be focused on goal 3. I shared a little bit about that last meeting, but we are very excited to have Miss King and Miss Barnhill help us with this, as well as the whole United team. We will be having a career fair, college and career fair tabling at the event, which we were super excited about. So I had mentioned that if there are any organizations that you know that offer college or career supports for students, you can send those to me and I can make sure that that team gets that so we can invite them to table if they're available. I also want to just share that this is an opportunity for all board members to reach out to anybody that you know in the community, families, businesses, organizations, so that we can get people to buy tickets. We will have a specialized link for the United game, and that link will give us $4 per ticket sold. So the more that we get sold with that link bought, the better. So just hanging that in there. And that date again is May 23rd. So once we get those links and all that information, I will share that. So the next item that we discussed was our April listening session, but I'm going to pause that and I'm actually going to talk about our town halls that we're having next week, because I know that there was a bit of confusion. So next week we are having our town halls on Monday and Wednesday, and those are around informing the community about our progress on our goals and guardrails, mostly just our goals. And I know we had some board members. I'm gonna try to pull up the email. We had some board members commit to being at those specific events. And I think there was some miscommunication if they were presenting or just attending. So I would love to have one board member that is a veteran and one new board member attend every single town hall, but I would also need 2 board members to present. So I know we had some people say that they would like to attend. I'm going to go through real quickly what the presentation looks like so that if you're interested, we can get that settled now. So first we have a welcome, an agenda, and I'll be sending this out this week, so you will have that before Monday. So we'll go over what the agenda looks like, and then we'll talk about board members. What are board members? What do we do? We'll talk a little bit about our goals and the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit, just to give more information and background of why our goals are tied to Yazzie Martinez. We'll do what do boards do versus what do superintendents do, talk a little bit about progress monitoring and how we monitor our goals. Then we'll share the progress towards our goals. So we'll have the graphs that we monitor up so that the community can see our growth and our potential growth. So super excited for them to see that. Then we'll go into a small kind of feedback where we will ask the community questions, just one question of how they have seen a positive change since we've developed these goals or since we've implemented the goals. So hopefully just a few people will share on that. And then we'll open up for questions and then we'll close out. So everything will be scripted. All you have to do is look at the slides and read a script. You can make it your own personal flair if you want to add that, but you will have all the information in a script and that will be also given to you beforehand. So it should be quick. It's only an hour and a half, so we didn't put too much in there, but that is kind of the quick run of show. And now I would need just any questions or volunteers to present at either Monday or Wednesday's town hall.
Board Member Storga, I'm happy to present at both if necessary.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I am also too. If you want me to present, I can.
Great.
Both.
I'd love to attend, especially Monday, being that it's in my district at Chespecones. I know I was not here for the last meeting to let you know, but I do want to attend, and I wouldn't mind presenting, but I might just check it out first and maybe next time.
Can I put you down for Wednesday?
Oh, Wednesday.
I'm just kidding. But
Um,
it's okay.
yeah, well, I'll see. Yeah, I'll see.
Are there any anybody else interested in presenting?
I can only be there on Wednesday, but you just put me where you need me. So
Okay. So Christy, can we put down Board Member Benavides and I will present on Monday, and then President Tomorito and Member Jackson will present on Wednesday.
Can do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Does that work for you? I know that Board Member Tomorito, you're closer to the west side. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll get there.
Okay, sounds good. Just want to make sure. Awesome. So now that that's cleared up, we have those presenters. Please, all of you still attend. I think it would be great just to have our board members there. So with that being said, we'll skip March now and then go back to April. So our April listening session will be held Monday, the 27th from 6 to 7:30 here in the boardroom. And again, that topic will be on safety. So what we discussed was just kind of fleshing out the run of show for that day. If you would like more information on that, I can definitely send that to you once we get it more finalized and pretty, but it's going to look really great. There's a few activities, so I'm excited for that. We also discussed our July listening session, and we have talked about the theme being nutrition and transportation. And that July listening session will be held on Monday, July 27th at 6 p.m. here again in the boardroom. The reason being that Bonifacio was not available, and this is the only other location where we'll be able to live stream it.
Board Member or Chair Astorga, I have a quick question about the nutrition presentation or listening session. Will we get samples of food?
That is actually a great suggestion. So we will be fleshing out some of that run of show in our May, June meetings. So I will definitely put that down. I know that Albuquerque High, I believe, that has done some stuff for us. So maybe we can get some samples of our scratch. Let me see, anything else? I believe that's it. I just wanted to also say that we are trying to potentially get a Saturday date to accommodate more families. I know that during the week is kind of hard, but we're running into issues because we want to make sure it's also live streamed or recorded for YouTube. So we're trying to figure it out, but yeah, that's it. Are there any other questions before we move on to the next session? Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. That's it.
Thank you. Our standing committee is doing really well. Thank you for heading that up. We'll go ahead and move on to our number 9 item, and that's the president's report. I had a really unique time at the end. It's only because I get tickets due to the superintendents, the New Mexico basketball playoffs. And I know some people would probably say I'm a little weird. Tuesday, I went from 3 till 10 o'clock at night. Wednesday, I did the same thing from 3 to 10 o'clock at night. Thursday from 8 in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I skipped Friday because I had to do board work and do my president's report and get that all in. Then Saturday, I went from 2 till 9 o'clock when Volcano Vista finished. And then Monday, I was invited to the state recognition for Volcano Vista, winning their 5th state title in basketball, the boys. And I talked to the coach, and what I didn't realize is I'm a former college basketball player. I had to give it up because of my knee. And when I told the coach that story, he then started introducing me. They have one Native American player on Volcano Vista. His name's Spirit. And he introduced us. We started talking. He was looking for scholarships to go on. And then there was another kid who was injured, his Achilles tendon, and he wanted me to meet him too and talk about my injury in sports. And then I met a couple more because he was really surprised that I played. And he was also surprised that I had a story to share with all of his team. And I didn't know how valuable that was until I had to take the time to talk to them. But I was introduced to them, and I was just grateful to be there that day. But the one thing I want to recognize in how I reach out to the high school students, especially in Volcano Vista, At around 11 o'clock, till about 1, I sit at the local McDonald's. And I'll see and sit there and I'll see the Volcano Vista team players, the cross-country players. And sometimes I go in the morning and then you'll have a few kids that will sit there. But one time I was there and these boys were really talking about girls and they're laughing and teasing each other and saying some pretty rude comments about women. So then I just went up to them, said, you know, you guys don't know me, but I think I better introduce myself. I'm your school board member, Ronaldo Tomorito. I've put out my hand to shake their hands and the boys are, you didn't hear what we said, did you? And I go, I did. But I think that I just wanted you to know who I was. And we won't do that again. We won't do that again. We'll make sure that and a couple of other boys just would reassure me that we'll tell them not to do that anymore. But it was amazing how they acknowledge you, they respect you, but they also had no idea I was sitting there because I was in my hat, I was in my athletic gear, and I was just watching and listening. But I wasn't there to recommend or take away or tell them you're doing something wrong. I just thought mere presence of introducing yourself, calling them, saying to them, I am your board member. And if you have any concerns, you can get a hold of me. They would shake my hand and they said, thank you for introducing yourself. So I just want to encourage you, go sit where those kids are sitting. Listen to what they're saying, but just introduce yourself. You don't have to say anything more. Just say, I'm here and I represent you. So on that note, kids are everywhere. You just got to take the time to reach out. And it's part of our community engagement. It may not be 2 members at one time, but it's a way to say to kids, I am here, I am present, and I acknowledge you. And the same thing I did for the Volcano Vista team. I just wanted to tell them I'm here. And you know what's really odd is the parents came up to me and they said, we see you here at the basketball games. We see you at the state tournament. We didn't know who you were. But I said, but now we do. So it's just that little interaction. People will remember you. So just do that for a moment and consider, where are these kids at? Acknowledge them, say hello, and that you're there to hear them out. But thank you. That's my report for today. But I do want to acknowledge all of those who did public speak. There were some huge issues, but hopefully in our response, we did hear them because we did include some of those voices. But I also want to know that it takes a lot of courage to come up there and talk. So please acknowledge that in any way, in whatever your title is, to hear them out too. Thank you. Our next board meeting is April. I think we're in April. What is it? April 15th after tax day. So we're going to have that here. For those of you who don't know our address, we're at 45 Uptown, 6400 Uptown Boulevard Northeast. And we're also live on our APS YouTube channel. I'm almost got my dad on the schedule, so we'll get him right. He might be asleep right now, but he'll be on to watch. So thank you, everyone. And right now we will go into our executive session. Oh, sorry. I forgot the other really important special meeting of our education meeting on March 26th at 3:15 p.m. So remember, 3:15 board members, right after the finance committee meeting, okay? So yes, and that will also be on YouTube. Thank you, everyone, and we'll go ahead and do our next agenda item, our executive session. Thank you. Do I need the gavel? Okay. So, okay, in our next item, we're going to consider approval for the Board of Education to convene an executive session as authorized by the Opens Meeting Act, Section 10-15-1 H2, for the purpose of discussing a limited personnel matter regarding the superintendent's evaluation. Do I have a motion and a second?
I move to approve the Board of Education to convene an executive session as authorized by the Opens Meeting Act, Section 10-15-1, for the purpose of discussing a limited personnel matter regarding the superintendent's evaluation. This is Board Member Astorga.
I will second. This is Member Jackson.
Board Member Astorga, motion to adopt today's meeting agenda, and Board Member Jackson, second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mel Astorga,
Yes.
Rebecca Betson,
Yes.
Joshua Martinez.
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Guarikia Bowman,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito.
Yes. The meeting will convene to open session after the executive session. At this time, I ask, that those people who are not part